What if the universe has ended? Not once, but countless times. What if every erasure by Zeno wasn't the end, but a reset? And what if one warrior remembered them all? After the Tournament of Power, Goku begins to feel it. Fights he remembers winning differently, enemies who hesitate before attacking, gods who avoid his eyes. This is the story of a Saiyan who didn't just survive destruction. He carried it forward. This is the story of the Keeper of Infinite Reboots. Chapter 1. The Erasure of the Last Smirk. The void didn't scream. It didn't even whisper. He just hummed. A low-frequency vibration that rattled the marrow in Goku's bones until he couldn't tell where his skeleton ended and the nothingness began. Everything was gone. The colorful marble of the earth, the neon skylines of West City, the smell of Chi-Chi's bacon, and even the annoying buzz of Beerus's snoring. It had been scrubbed. The Grand Minister hadn't just deleted the multiverse, he had bleached the canvas of existence until there wasn't a single drop of ink left. Goku stood in the center of the white static, his orange GI shredded into hanging ribbons of burnt fabric. His chest heaved, pulling in air that wasn't really there. His lungs burned with the vacuum of a dead reality. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Not with fear, but with the sheer sensory overload of being the only physical object left in a zero-sum game. Yo, Goku croaked, his voice cracking like dry leather. Zeno, little guys, you still there? No answer. Only the hum. Damn, Goku thought, a stray drop of blood hitting the invisible floor and vanishing instantly. I really blew it this time. I thought we had him. I thought the UI would hold. The memory of the erasure flickered in his mind like a dying film reel. He saw Vegeta's face. That final, stubborn scowl before the Prince of Saiyans turned into blue pixels and drifted into the wind. He saw Gohan's eyes, wide with a realization that his books and his peace hadn't prepared him for a god who decided the experiment was over. Goku clenched his fist. The white space around him ripples. This wasn't just a loss. This was a game over. Where the console had been tossed into a furnace. You're late, son Goku. The voice didn't come from behind him. It came from inside his ear membranes. Goku spun around, his boots skidding on nothingness. Standing there was a figure that looked like a glitch in a dream. It was tall, draped in robes that shifted between the deep violet of a dying star and the pitch black of a collapsed lung. It had no face. Just a swirling vortex of golden numerals and ancient symbols that moved too fast for the human eye to track. Who are you? Goku squared his stance, his base form aura flickering weakly like a candle in a hurricane. You one of the guards? Or did the Grand Minister leave a janitor behind to sweep up the scraps? The figure tilted its head. I am the chronicler of the reset. I am the one who watches the wheel turn, Goku. And right now, the wheel is stuck. You're a pebble in the gears. I don't care about gears, Goku spat, the USA slang dripping with a grit he usually reserved for the likes of Frieza. I want my world back. I want my friends back. If I gotta kick your teeth in to get 'em, then let's get to it. I'm tired of talking to ghosts. The chronicler chuckled, a sound like glass breaking in a cathedral. You think this is a fight you can win with a punch? Look around you, Saiyan. There is no where left. There is no when. The Zenos got bored. They hit the kill switch. But the energy you generated, that heat from the Ultra Instinct, it created a paradox. You're too heavy to be deleted, but too light to exist. Goku took a step forward. The ground, if you could call it that, cracked under his weight. Give me a way back. Now. There is no back. There is only again, the chronicler said, extending a hand. In its palm, a small, spinning sphere of crystalline light appeared. Inside it, Goku could see billions of tiny timelines, looping like snakes eating their own tails. The multiverse is a failure. A buggy simulation. The higher heavens have decided to mothball the project. But they need a keeper. Someone to manage the reboots. Someone to decide which versions of reality get to breathe and which ones get suffocated in the crib. Goku stared at the sphere. His heart hammered against his ribs. A keeper. You mean a jailer. I mean a god of gods, the chronicler corrected. The infinite reboot. You could go back to the beginning. You could see Grandpa Gohan again. You could save Krillin before he ever felt a blade. You could keep the Earth as a paradise forever. But you'd have to watch the clock. You'd have to prune the timeline every time it gets too messy. You'd have to kill the villains before they're born. You'd have to be the shadow that keeps the light burning. Goku's mind raced. He wasn't a smart man when it came to math or politics, but he knew the smell of a bad deal. This sounded like a cage. A golden, infinite cage where he'd be the only one who remembered the truth. If I say no, I die here. Everything stays dead. If I say yes, I'm the one pulling the trigger on everyone else. What happens if I refuse? Goku asked, his eyes narrowing into two sharp, dangerous slits. Then the hum stops, the chronicler said simply. And you become the silence. Goku looked at his hands again. He remembered the heat of the fight. The rush of pushing past his limits. The feeling of being alive. If he became this keeper, would he ever feel that again? Or would he just be a spectator in a movie he'd already seen a trillion times? I ain't much for desk jobs, Goku said, a small, dark smirk finally tugging at the corner of his mouth. But if being the keeper means I get to find the guy who erased my family and shove his reset right up his soul, then sign me up. But don't expect me to follow the script. The chronicler stepped forward, the golden symbols on its face glowing with a blinding, terrifying intensity. The script is written in blood, son Goku. If you want to change it, you'll have to bleed more than any mortal in history. Are you ready to see how many times a soul can break before it turns to diamond? Goku didn't answer with words. He roared. The white void shattered. The sound wasn't a scream, it was the sound of a universe being born and dying in the same millisecond. Blue light exploded from Goku's pores, not the calm shimmer of the gods, but a jagged, violent electricity that tore through the fabric of the chronicler's robes. I'm ready, Goku growled, his voice dropping an octave as his hair flashed silver. Let's see what this infinite is all about. Show me the first reboot. The sphere in the chronicler's hand expanded, swallowing them both. Goku felt his atoms being ripped apart and restitched. He saw the birth of the Saiyans. He saw Frieza laughing over the ashes of planet Vegeta. He saw himself as a baby, screaming in a pod. But this time, it was different. This time, he wasn't just the passenger. He was the one holding the steering wheel. He saw a version of the past where he never hit his head. He saw a version where he killed Bulma the moment they met. He saw a version where he was the one who destroyed the Earth. The weight of it hit him like a physical blow. Billions of lives, billions of deaths, all resting on the shoulders of a man who just wanted to eat a bowl of ramen and test his strength. Welcome to your new life, Keeper, the chronicler's voice echoed as the light faded into a familiar, humid jungle. Chapter 1 of the Infinite Reboot begins now. Try not to let the guilt kill you before the first day is over. Goku stood in the middle of a forest. The air smelled of damp moss and wild animals. He was small. His hands were tiny. His tail flicked behind him, hitting the trunk of a tree with a solid thwack. He looked up at the sky. He was back, but he wasn't the Goku he used to be. He was something else, something heavier. He looked at his reflection in a nearby puddle. His eyes weren't the innocent eyes of a child. They were the eyes of a man who had seen the end of everything and survived to tell the tale. All right, the kid, Goku whispered, his voice high-pitched but filled with an ancient, terrifying authority. Let's see if I can do this right this time. Or if I'm gonna have to break this whole damn world myself. Deep in the shadows of the forest, something watched him. Something that shouldn't have been there. A ripple in the timeline that the chronicler hadn't mentioned. Goku sensed it immediately. His power level didn't just spike, it vibrated with the frequency of a multiversal constant. I see you, Goku said, turning toward the dark brush. You're the first glitch, aren't you? The hunt had begun, not for a Dragon Ball, but for the soul of a reality that was already starting to rot at the edges. Goku took a breath, felt the raw, unrefined ki of his youth clashing with the god-tier consciousness of his future, and stepped into the trees. The game was rigged. The house always won, but the house had never played against a Saiyan who had nothing left to lose but the concept of time itself. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The Blood-Stained Cradle. The jungle wasn't supposed to feel this heavy. In his first life, Mount Paozu was a playground of emerald leaves and oversized fish, a place of pure, unadulterated innocence. But as the keeper, Goku felt the heartbeat of the planet, and it was tachycardic. Every rustle of the grass sounded like a wheezing lung. The air was thick with the copper tang of a future that hadn't happened yet, but was already rotting in the soil. Goku looked down at his small, sun-browned hands. They were the hands of a boy. But the spirit dwelling within them was a titan of scars and cosmic trauma. He could feel the ultra instinct hum buried deep in his bone marrow, a dormant supernova waiting for a trigger. The first glitch, Goku murmured, his voice sounding wrong in his own ears, too high, too young. Show yourself. I know you ain't a tiger, and you definitely ain't a bear. From the shadows of a massive banyan tree, the air began to warp. It looked like heat haze on a highway, but the temperature dropped until frost crystallized on the ferns. A figure stepped out. It was a mirror image of himself, Kid Goku, complete with the blue tunic and the power pole. But the skin was the color of a bruised plum, and the eyes were empty sockets leaking black ichor. A time wraith, Goku realized. A byproduct of the reboot. The universe trying to purge the foreign code. You don't belong here, the wraith hissed. The sound wasn't coming from its mouth. It was the sound of 1,000 dying stars being crushed into a single point. The child must stay a child. The god must stay in the void. You are an infection. Goku didn't waste time with a witty comeback. He didn't have the patience for it anymore. He shifted his weight, and the ground beneath his feet turned to powder. In a blink, a movement so fast it shattered the sound barrier and sent a shockwave that leveled the surrounding trees. He was in the wraith's face. He didn't use a flashy ki blast. He delivered a straight punch to the entity's solar plexus. The impact sounded like a sledgehammer hitting a wet bag of gravel. I'm the guy who decides who belongs. Goku growled. The wraith didn't double over. It dissolved into a swarm of black locusts, swirling around Goku, biting at his skin with teeth made of existential dread. Each bite wasn't a physical wound. It was a memory being chewed on. Goku saw Grandpa Gohan's face. He saw the great ape's foot coming down. He saw the blood on the rocks. You think I haven't lived through this horror already? Goku roared. He flared his aura. It wasn't the golden fire of a Super Saiyan. It was a translucent, oily silver that pushed the locusts back. I've died more times than you've existed. You're just a parasite. He reached out and grabbed the air itself. With the authority of the Keeper, he manipulated the local gravity, pinning the locusts to the earth. They merged back into the shadowy boy, struggling under the weight of 1,000 Earths. Who sent you? Goku demanded, stepping onto the wraith's chest. The Grand Minister. Or is there something else lurking in the Reboot's basement? The wraith laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. The reboot isn't a gift, Keeper. It's a recycling bin. Everything you thought you saved, it's just being compressed. The more you change, the more the pressure builds. Eventually, the tank blows. You're not a savior. You're the lid on a boiling pot of ghosts. Goku tightened his grip on his power pole, the real one, leaning against a tree nearby. He felt the wood vibrate. Then I'll just have to be a really heavy lid. With a sharp thrust, he drove the pole through the wraith's head. It didn't bleed. It evaporated into a cloud of purple smoke that smelled of ozone and old incense. Silence returned to the mountain, but it was an uneasy peace. Goku looked up at the moon, which was just a sliver in the afternoon sky. He knew what was coming. In the original timeline, his transformation into the Uzaru had been an accident of fate. Here, it was a fixed point, a knot in the thread. But as the Keeper, he could see the strings. I can't let Gohan die this time, Goku thought, his heart aching with a sudden, sharp grief. I don't care about the natural order. If I have the power of a god, I'm gonna use it to keep the only man. Who ever loved me without wanting something from me alive? He turned toward the small hut in the clearing. He could see the smoke rising from the chimney. He could smell the herbal tea. He ran. He did. And fly. Flying would draw too much attention from the watchers in the higher dimensions, but he moved with a fluid, predator-like grace that no 4-year-old should possess. He reached the hut just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in the colors of a fresh bruise. Grandpa, Goku called out, slamming the door open. Grandpa Gohan sat by the fire, his weathered face breaking into a warm, crinkled smile. Ah, Goku, you're back late. I was starting to think a monster had finally gotten the better of you. Goku froze. Seeing him again. Really seeing him, not in a vision or a dream, was like being hit with a final flash. The warmth, the smell of old wool, the gentle key that felt like a weighted blanket. It was too much. Goku, is something wrong, child? You look like you've seen a ghost. I have, Goku whispered. He walked over and hugged the old man's waist, burying his face in his chest. I saw a lot of them. But they're gone now. Gohan chuckled, patting Goku's messy hair. Well, wash up. We have rice and, Grandpa, we have to leave, Goku said, pulling back. His voice was cold, surgical. Tonight, now, we need to go into the deep caves. Somewhere without a view of the sky. Gohan's smile faded. He saw the look in the boy's eyes. It wasn't the look of a grandson. It was the look of a veteran who had seen the trenches. Goku, what is this? The moon is nearly full. It's a night for celebration. For the Great Spirit too. The moon is a trigger, Grandpa. And tonight, it's gonna try to kill you using my body. I won't let it happen. Gohan stood up, his own martial arts instincts kicking in. You know of the transformation. But how? I never told you. I know everything, Goku said, and for a split second, his eyes flashed that terrifying, vacant silver of the Ultra Instinct. I know about the tail. I know about the Saiyans. I know about the end of the world. And I'm telling you, if we stay here, this hut becomes your tomb. The air in the room grew heavy. The fire in the hearth flickered and died, as if the oxygen was being sucked out of the room by Goku's sheer presence. Gohan backed away, his hand moving toward his chest. Who are you? Gohan whispered. You look like my grandson, but your soul is as vast as the ocean, and just as cold. I'm the guy who's gonna save you, Goku said. Even if I have to drag you to the bottom of the earth to do it. Outside, the first sliver of the full moon peeked over the mountain ridge. Goku felt the surge. The blood's waves hit his retinas like a shot of adrenaline to the heart. His blood began to boil. His heart hammered a rhythm of destruction. The great ape was screaming in the basement of his DNA, begging to be let out to feast on the world. Not today, Goku thought, clenching his teeth so hard they nearly cracked. I am the keeper. I control the beast. I control the moon. I control the reboot. He grabbed Gohan's arm. Run. Now. They sprinted toward the rocky cliffs of the north. Behind them, the hut seemed to groan as the atmospheric pressure shifted. But the moon followed. It felt like a giant, unblinking eye staring down at Goku, demanding his soul. Goku's body began to swell. His muscles tore and reformed. His jaw elongated. The fur began to sprout, black and coarse like iron wire. Goku, your tail, Gohan yelled, tripping over a root. Goku stopped. He turned to face the moon. He was halfway through the transformation, a horrific, midway chimera of a boy and a monster. His voice was a guttural roar, a mix of a child's scream and a demon's howl. Get in the cave. Gohan scrambled into the dark maw of a limestone cavern. Goku stood alone on the precipice. The moon was full now, a brilliant, mocking orb of white light. Goku's mind was a war zone. The primal instinct to destroy was clashing with the sophisticated willpower of a god. He felt his consciousness slipping, the keeper, being drowned out by the Uzaru. I am Son Goku, he told himself, the words a mantra against the dark. I am the protector of Earth. I am the one who reached the level of the gods. I am the keeper of the infinite reboot. And I will not break. He didn't transform. He did something much worse. He reached up, his hand glowing with a concentrated, sapphire blue energy. He didn't aim for the moon. He aimed for the concept of the moon in this sector of reality. Hawkeye, he whispered. The word was a needle prick in the fabric of the universe. A small, purple spark flew from his fingertip. It traveled upward, silent and slow. When it hit the moon, there was no explosion. There was no debris. The moon simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, bathing the world in silver. The next, it was a hole in the sky, a vacuum where light refused to go. The transformation stopped instantly. Goku fell to his knees, his body shrinking back, his skin steaming as the excess energy dissipated. He coughed, spitting up a glob of dark, celestial bile. The tide of the world shifted. The oceans across the globe felt the loss of their sister. The weather patterns began to spin out of control. Somewhere in a distant palace, the Grand Minister looked up from his staff, a single eyebrow twitching. Goku lay on the dirt, gasping for air. He had saved Gohan. He had broken the first fixed point. But as he looked at the empty space in the sky, he felt a cold chill. Again, had changed. The ground began to shake. Not an earthquake, but a rhythmic thumping. Thump, thump, thump. From the hole in the sky where the moon used to be, something began to crawl out. It was white, jagged, and massive. It looked like a bone-white hand, miles long, reaching down toward the earth. The system, the chronicler's voice echoed in Goku's mind, sounding genuinely worried for the first time. The system doesn't like it when you delete the assets, Goku. It's sending a debugger. Goku stood up, wiping the blood from his lip. He looked at the massive, skeletal hand descending from the stars, ready to crush the mountain, and his grandfather, into dust. Fine, Goku said, his small fist glowing with the heat of a billion suns. I was getting bored of the flashback anyway. Let's see how this debugger handles a Saiyan who's already seen the end of the world. He leapt, not like a boy, but like a comet, heading straight for the palm of the celestial hand. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The Debugger's Lament. The sky didn't just tear, it unraveled like a cheap suit. As Goku rocketed upward, the atmosphere screamed, the friction of his small body cutting through the air creating a sonic boom that shattered every window within 100 miles. He wasn't just flying, he was a puncture wound in the sky. The debugger was a monstrosity of geometry and bone. It wasn't a living thing, but a celestial autonomous program, a multi-fingered hand the size of a continent, trailing long, translucent ribbons of binary code that looked like glowing intestines. Where it touched the clouds, they didn't dissipate. They were converted into static. You're a long way from the office, pal. Goku yelled, his voice bolstered by a ki that shook the very foundation of the troposphere. He Ahmed his fist into the center of the skeletal palm. The impact was silent. For a heartbeat, the universe held its breath. Then, a ring of white fire expanded outward, pushing the clouds back to the horizons. Goku felt the resistance. It wasn't like hitting flesh or metal. It was like punching a wall of pure logic. The hand didn't move. It didn't even vibrate. Error. A voice boomed, vibrating through Goku's teeth. It was the sound of a million hard drives crashing. Anomaly detected in Sector 704. Moon asset missing. Source identified. Unit 001 Saiyan. Resolution. Format C. The fingers of the hand began to curl inward, moving with a slow, agonizing inevitability. Each finger was a mountain range of jagged, calcified ivory. Goku found himself trapped in a closing fist that could crush a planetoid. Think, Goku, he told himself. The silver light of Ultra Instinct flickering behind his retinas. This thing isn't a fighter. It's a tool. You don't beat a tool by hitting it. You beat it by breaking its purpose. He flared his energy, but not for a blast. He reached out and grabbed one of the glowing ribbons of code trailing from the wrist. The moment his skin touched the light, he was flooded with the history of the reboot. He saw trillions of Gokus before him. He saw Gokus who died as babies, Gokus who became tyrants, Gokus who were erased by Beerus in the first 5 minutes. He was the only one who had ever hit back. I ain't a unit, Goku growled, his muscles bulging, the blue tunic of his childhood ripping further. And I ain't getting formatted. He channeled the Hawkeye energy he had used on the moon. But instead of a projectile, he coated his entire body in it. The purple aura of destruction hissed against the white bone of the debugger. The smell of burning mathematics filled the air. He began to run up the length of the index finger, his boots melting the surface of the celestial limb. As he ran, he dragged his hand along the bone, leaving a deep, glowing trench of erasure. Format this. He reached the knuckle, and leapt, spinning in midair to deliver a kick powered by the weight of 1,000 failed timelines. The bone cracked. A sound like a tectonic plate snapping echoed across the globe. A fountain of gold liquid, the blood of the system, sprayed into the vacuum. The debugger let out a frequency that made Goku's nose bleed. The hand retracted, pulling back into the hole in the sky. But it wasn't leaving, it was recalibrating. From the hole, a face began to emerge. It was a flat, Featureless mask of white porcelain, 3 miles wide, with 2 burning red pixels for eyes. Sub-routine. Erasure of the soul, the mask intoned. If the world cannot be fixed, the world must be recycled. All assets in this loop will be liquidated. Red beams shot from the pixel eyes. They weren't lasers. They were beams of null. Anything they touched. The birds in the air, the trees on the mountains, the very air itself, didn't explode. It just stopped being. Goku looked down. One of the beams was heading straight for Mount Paozu. Straight for the hut. Straight for Grandpa Gohan. No. Goku plummeted, his body a silver streak. He beat the beam by a millisecond, landing in front of the hut and crossing his arms. The red light hit him. The pain was unlike anything he'd felt. It wasn't physical. It felt like someone was taking a giant eraser to his memories. He felt the image of Chi-Chi fading. He felt the taste of his first victory over King Piccolo blurring. He felt his very name starting to slip away. I am, your son Goku. A voice cried out. Goku looked back. Grandpa Gohan was standing in the doorway, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with terror but also a strange, ancient pride. I don't know what you've become, or what heaven or hell you crawled out of. But you're my boy. Don't you let that thing take you. The mention of his name acted like an anchor. The silver aura exploded, turning from a flicker into a roaring bonfire of divine intent. Goku pushed back against the beam, his small feet digging deep furrows into the earth. I'm the keeper, Goku roared, his voice regaining the bass of his adult self. And this world stays on. He threw his hands forward, palm to palm. He didn't fire a Kamehameha. He fired a bridge. A beam of pure, shimmering UI energy collided with the red beam of nullification. The two forces locked, creating a sphere of grinding reality between them. The pressure was so immense that time began to dilate. A second felt like an hour. Goku could see the atoms of the air dancing. He stepped forward, then another. He was walking up the beam, defying the physics of the reboot. You're just a machine, Goku hissed, his face inches from the grinding epicenter of the two beams. And I'm the guy who breaks machines. He reached into the center of the collision and pulled. He ripped the red beam apart with his bare hands. The feedback sent a pulse of energy back up to the porcelain mask. The red pixel eyes flickered and went dark. The mask began to crack, long fissures appearing across its smooth surface. Corruption. At the source, the debugger stuttered. System. Failure. A giant hand and the mask began to dissolve into white cubes of data, drifting away like snow in a heavy wind. The hole in the sky started to seal itself, the fabric of space-time stitching itself back together with golden thread. Goku fell. He hit the ground hard, the impact forming a crater 50 feet wide. He lay there, his small body smoking, his GI nothing but ash. He was back to being a 4-year-old boy, but his spirit felt like it had aged a million years in 5 minutes. Gohan ran to the edge of the crater, sliding down the loose dirt. He gathered the small, broken boy into his arms. Goku, speak to me. Goku opened one eye. It was black again, the silver gone. He coughed, and a small puff of purple smoke escaped his lips. Hey, Grandpa, did I win? Gohan wept, hugging him tight. You saved us. I don't understand any of it, but you saved us. But Goku knew better. He looked up at the sky. The stars were back, but they looked different. They were arranged in patterns that didn't match his memory. By killing the debugger and deleting the moon, he hadn't just saved the day, he had sent the reboot into an unscripted territory. The chronicler appeared at the edge of the crater, invisible to Gohan. His robe of shifting numbers looking ragged. You've done it now, Goku, the chronicler whispered. You've broken the loop. The system is trying to compensate, but it's pulling assets from other timelines to fill the gaps. You wanted a different story. You've got one. Goku felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. He looked toward the horizon. In the distance, where the city of the Red Ribbon Army should have been, a massive, dark tower was rising, a tower that didn't belong in this era. And atop that tower, a familiar, cold key began to radiate. A key that should have been light years away on a planet called Namek. Frieza, Goku breathed. The tyrant was here, early, and he wasn't alone. The script is gone, Keeper, the chronicler said, vanishing into the static. Good luck writing the next page. Goku looked at Gohan, then at his own trembling hands. The infinite was just getting started, and the stakes had just jumped from a mountain to a galaxy. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Frozen Horizon. The air didn't just turn cold, it turned predatory. Mount Paozu, once a bastion of humid life, began to wilt. The vibrant green of the canopy turned a sickly, brittle gray as a frost that wasn't made of water began to coat the trees. This was a metaphysical chill, the kind that follows the footsteps of a being who views whole civilization as nothing more than an ant farm to be stepped on for a laugh. Goku stood at the edge of the crater, his small chest heaving. He could feel it, that oily, sharp, and utterly suffocating pressure. It was Frieza, but it wasn't the Frieza he remembered from the burning crust of Namek. This ki was older, colder, and refined through the lens of a reboot gone wrong. "Grandpa," Goku said, his voice dropping into that low, dangerous register that belonged to a man who had stared down gods. "You need to get in the cave. Deep. Don't come out until the sky stops bleeding." Gohan didn't argue. He saw the way the air shimmered around his grandson. He saw the way the grass died beneath the boy's feet. "Goku. Who is that? I've never felt a malice like this. It feels like the world is crying. It's an old ghost in a new suit." Goku muttered, "Go, now." As Gohan retreated into the dark safety of the limestone, Goku turned his gaze toward the horizon. The dark tower, the spire of the cold, wasn't just a building. It was a terraforming engine, pumping out a thick, violet mist that was eating the atmosphere. Goku didn't fly, he ignited. He became a streak of white-hot intent, carving a path through the sky toward the tower. He didn't care about stealth. He wanted the bastard to see him coming. He wanted the system to know that the Keeper was on the clock. As he neared the spire, he saw the carnage. This wasn't the Red Ribbon Army. This was an extermination. The surrounding villages had been turned into glass. No bodies, no ruins, just smooth, black obsidian where life used to be. Frieza wasn't conquering. He was cleaning the map. Goku landed on the observation deck of the spire with the weight of a falling star. The metal deck buckled, groaning under his tiny boots. There, sitting in a hover chair that looked like it was carved from a single diamond, was the tyrant. Frieza looked different. His skin wasn't the sleek white and purple of his first form. He was encased in a suit of organic, matte black armor, with veins of glowing crimson running through it like a circuit board. "Oh." Frieza turned the chair, a glass of wine dark liquid in his hand. He looked down at T. He 4-year-old boy with a gaze that could freeze a sun. "The system said there was a bug in the code. I didn't expect the bug to be wearing such a primitive skin." "Frieza," Goku spat, his small hands clenching. "You're a long way from home. And about 20 years too early." Frieza chuckled, a sound like dry bones rattling in a box. "Time is a suggestion, little monkey. In this reboot, the old force didn't wait for the fruit to ripen. We decided to harvest the orchard while it was still in the bud. But you're an anomaly. You have the scent of a dead man on you." Frieza stood up. He was towering compared to the child Goku, a nightmare of obsidian and malice. "I watched my father erase your planet in a dozen different timelines. I've watched you burn in the vacuum of space. But this is new. You have the eyes of someone who has already lost everything. I'm the guy who's gonna make sure you don't get a chance to take anything else," Goku said. In a flash, Goku was gone. He didn't use a punch. He used a conceptual strike, a technique he'd learned in the void between reboots. He struck the air around Frieza, collapsing the spatial coordinates of the deck. The spire groaned as the top floor compressed into a space the size of a marble. Frieza vanished into the fold. But there was no victory. A second later, the compressed space exploded. Frieza stood in the center of the debris, his black armor unmarred, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, red intensity. "Cute," Frieza whispered, "you're using the laws of the universe. But you forget, monkey, in this reboot, I am the law." Frieza pointed a single finger. A beam of crimson light, no thicker than a needle, shot toward Goku's heart. Goku dodged, but the beam followed. It moved with a sentient hunger, weaving through the air like a snake. Goku accelerated, breaking the sound barrier, then the light barrier, but the beam was tethered to his very soul. It's a tracking script, Goku realized. He's not just shooting me. He's targeting my existence in the database. Goku stopped dead. He turned to face the beam. He didn't move. As the red needle reached his chest, he reached out and caught it. The heat was agonizing. It felt like his hand was being dissolved in acid. But he didn't let go. He channeled the silver heat of the Keeper, the raw, unfiltered energy of the reboot, and began to eat the beam. He pulled the energy into his body, his small frame bulging with the stolen power. His hair flickered between black and a blinding, crystalline white. My turn, Goku growled. He lunged. Frieza raised a hand to block. But Goku didn't go for the head. He went for the armor. He struck the crimson veins in the black plate. Crack. The armor shattered. Frieza's eyes widened in genuine shock. For the first time in any timeline, he felt the sensation of a mortal breaking through his divine tier protection. Goku followed up with a barrage of strikes, each one a localized supernova. Left hook, right cross, a knee to the gut that sent Frieza through the hull of the tower and out into the frozen sky. They danced in the clouds, a dark god and a silver child. Frieza roared, his elegant facade finally cracking. He dropped the wine glass, his hands glowing with the power to snuff out galaxies. I will not be embarrassed by a glitch. Frieza screamed. Supernova. Final reboot. A ball of black energy, lack. Ed with the same red. Null code the debugger had used, formed above Frieza's head. It grew until it eclipsed the sun, casting the earth into a false, terrifying night. If I can't have this world, I'll delete the file. Frieza laughed, his voice breaking into a manic, high-pitched screech. Goku looked down at the earth. He could see Mount Paozu. He could see the small, flickering key of Gohan. He could see the billions of lives that were about to be turned into zeros and ones. He closed his eyes. I am the Keeper, he whispered to himself. I am the one who holds the pen. And I say this chapter isn't over. He didn't charge a Kamehameha. He did something far more dangerous. He reached into the very core of his being, past the Saiyan, past the god, to the void where the chronicler lived. He let out a handful of the nothingness that had started this whole journey. Erasure. Against erasure, Goku said, his voice echoing with the power of 1,000 dead universes. He thrust his hands upward. A pillar of white, static-filled energy shot from his palms. It wasn't light, it was the absence of everything. When it hit Frieza's supernova, there was no explosion. The two forces began to cancel each other out. The black sphere and the white pillar ground against one another, creating a sound that wasn't sound, it was the sound of logic failing. The sky began to pixelate. The Mountai, NS in the distance started to flicker in and out of existence. You're destroying the world just to stop me. Frieza yelled, his face contorting as the feedback began to melt his black armor. I'm resetting the localized area. Goku countered, his teeth bleeding from the strain. I'm cutting you out like a cancer, Frieza. With a final, guttural roar, Goku pushed. The white static overwhelmed the black sphere. It consumed Frieza, the tower, and the violet mist. For a moment, there was nothing but the hum of the void. Then, with a snap, reality snapped back into place. Goku fell from the sky, hitting the ground in the middle of a lush, green forest. The frost was gone. The tower was gone. The spire was a memory that hadn't happened. He lay in the grass, his body vibrating with a bone-deep exhaustion. He was back to being a normal, 4-year-old boy. The silver was gone. The god-tier power was buried back in the basement of his soul. Did I do it? In a manner of speaking, the chronicler said, appearing beside him. Sitting on a mossy rock. You deleted Frieza from this sector. But you used too much, nothing. You've left a hole in the story, Goku. And nature hates a vacuum. Goku sat up, rubbing his head. What kind of hole? The chronicler pointed toward the west. To delete a tyrant, you had to sacrifice a hero. Look at your key sense, Keeper. Tell me who's missing. Goku closed his eyes, searching for the familiar sparks of life. He felt Gohan. He felt the distant, faint hum of the humans in the cities. But there was a void where a certain blue-haired girl and her dragon radar should have been. Bulma. Goku's heart sank. Where's Bulma? She was at the coordinates of the tower in the previous iteration, the chronicler said coldly. When you erased the tower, you erased the girl. No Bulma, no dragon radar, no dragon radar, no dragon balls. No dragon balls. Quote. No way to fix the mistakes, Goku finished, his voice trembling. He looked at his hands. He had saved Gohan, but he had killed the girl who started it all. The reboot was spiraling. The infinite was becoming a nightmare of his own making. And in the distance, a new sound began to rise. A mechanical, rhythmic thumping. Red Ribbon wasn't gone. Without Bulma to stop them, they had spent the last decade growing. And they had found something in the ruins of the spire. Something that looked like a black, armored heart. The story goes on. Goku, the chronicler whispered, vanishing. But the ink is starting to look a lot like blood. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. The Cold Gears of Fate. The silence that followed Bulma's erasure was louder than Frieza's final scream. Goku stood in the lush, restored grass of Mount Paozu, but the air felt thin, like a lungful of ash. He reached out with his key sense, pushing his perception across the oceans, through the bustling centers of West City, and into the desert hideouts of bandits. Nothing. The bright, inquisitive, and annoyingly persistent Park of Bulma briefs had been snuffed out by the very hand meant to protect her. Goku knelt, his small fingers digging into the dirt. As the keeper, he had the power of a god, but he had the precision of a wrecking ball. He had saved his grandfather from the moon, but he had traded the world's future for a single old man's breath. You're shaking, Keeper, the chronicler's voice drifted through the trees. Though the entity remained unseen, as the weight of a single soul too heavy for the man who saw universes blink out. Shut up, Goku growled. I can fix this. I'll reboot the sector again. I'll go back 5 minutes. You'll what? Tear the fabric until it's nothing but rags. The chronicler materialized, leaning against a tree that shouldn't have been there. The system is already hemorrhaging data. You can't just undo a deletion of that magnitude without collapsing the timeline. Bulma is gone, and with her, the hope of the Dragon Balls. Goku stood up, his small face hardening into a mask of pure, unadulterated resolve. Then I'll find another way. I'm the one holding the pen, remember. Then you better start writing fast. Because the vacuum you left, something just filled it. A low, mechanical rumble began to vibrate through the earth. It wasn't the tectonic shift of a planet, it was the synchronized rhythm of a million pistons. Goku looked toward the west. On the horizon, the sky wasn't turning violet this time. It was turning a flat, industrial charcoal. Without Bulma's interference in the early years, the Red Ribbon Army hadn't just remained a threat, they had become the world's sole superpower. And they had spent the last decade excavating the Spire of the Cold that Goku had deleted. They hadn't found Frieza, but they had found his technology. Thump, thump, thump. They're coming, aren't they? Goku asked, his voice devoid of emotion. The Red Ribbon hegemony, the chronicler corrected. Led by a man who no longer seeks the Dragon Balls for height, but for total biological synchronization. Commander Red is dead. In his place, something much more efficient. Goku didn't wait for the army to come to him. He didn't want the fight anywhere near Grandpa Gohan. He blasted off, a silver blur that tore through the sound barrier, leaving a trail of scorched ozone in his wake. He crossed the continent in minutes. Below him, the world looked like a factory. Great swaths of forest had been replaced by sprawling, metallic citadels. People moved in the streets like clockwork, their movements jerky and devoid of spirit. They weren't slaves. They were optimized. In the center of it all stood the new Muscle Tower, a skyscraper of black iron and pulsing red light that pierced the clouds like a needle. Goku landed at the base of the tower. He was greeted not by soldiers, but by a wall of liquid metal that rose from the pavement. The metal shifted, forming a face he recognized, yet hated. Identity confirmed. Son Goku. Status. Anomaly. Threat level. Absolute. The wall spoke with a voice that was a digital chorus. Dr. Gero. Goku spat. I should have known you'd be the one pulling the strings in a world without heroes. The metal shifted again, and a holographic projection of an old man with a long white mustache and a brain encased in glass appeared. Gero looked younger than Goku remembered, his eyes burning with the fervor of a man who had finally solved the equation of godhood. Goku, or whatever you are, Zero's projection sneered. The sensors picked up your little tantrum with the celestial intruder. You deleted a god, but you left his trash behind. My drones recovered the core of that spire. Do you have any idea what cold force tech can do when paired with Earth's cybernetics? It can turn a man into a toaster. Goku countered, his silver aura beginning to leak from his pores. Zero laughed. A cold, binary sound. It can turn a planet into a processor. We don't need Dragon Balls to grant wishes anymore. We have the logic. We have the algorithm. And now, we have the perfect specimen to complete the project. From the top of the tower, something plummeted. It hit the ground with the force of a nuclear detonation, sending a cloud of pulverized concrete into the air. When the dust cleared, Goku's blood ran cold. It was a tall, lithe figure clad in a skin-tight suit of white and orange. Its hair was a wild, gravity-defying mane of jet black. But the face was a horror. Half of it was the beautiful, porcelain skin of a young woman. The other half was a terrifying array of red optical sensors and exposed titanium. Bulma, Goku whispered, his heart shattering in his chest. Subject 00B, Zero's voice boomed. The hole you left in the story. I found the fragments. I stitched her back together with the black armor tech. She isn't the girl you knew. She is the interface. She is the red ribbon's god machine. The cyborg Bulma looked at Goku. Her one human eye was vacant, washed out by a sea of digital static. She raised a hand, and a blade of pure, concentrated ki, the same crimson as Frieza's, extended from her wrist. Target acquired, she said, her voice a distorted echo of the girl who once complained about her hair and dreamed of romance. Zero, you bastard, Goku roared. The silver aura exploded, turning the street into a crater. You took her and turned her into this. I saved her from the nothingness you created. Zero retorted. Now, Subject 00B, initiate the Grand Reset Protocol. Harvest the Keeper's Spark. Bulma moved. She didn't fly, she teleported. Not with the instant transmission Goku knew, but by literally rewriting her coordinates in the local reality. She appeared behind Goku and drove the ki blade through his shoulder. Goku screamed, the sound echoing through the empty city. The blade didn't just cut flesh, it started downloading his divine energy. He felt his power being drained, his memories of the void being sucked into the red ribbon mainframe. He spun, kicking her in the ribs, but her body was reinforced with the obsidian armor of the cold force. It was like kicking a black hole. She didn't budge. She grabbed his leg and slammed him into the pavement, over and over, with a mechanical, rhythmic brutality. I can't hit her, Goku thought, his vision blurring. It's Bulma. Even if she's a machine, it's her. She is a puppet, Goku. The chronicler shouted in his mind. If you don't stop her, Zero will use your energy to reboot the world in his image. A world of iron. A world without a soul. Is that the Again you wanted? Goku looked up as Bulma stood over him, her hand glowing with a sphere of black-red energy. The human side of her face twitched. For a split second, the optical sensor flickered, and the blue eye regained its depth. Goku, she whispered, a single tear of oil and salt trailing down her cheek. Kill me. The spark of her soul was still there, trapped in a cage of gears and alien logic. Goku's heart hardened. He felt a coldness settle over him that was deeper than any frost Frieza could produce. This was the burden of the Keeper. To save the story, he had to be the villain of the chapter. I'm sorry, Bulma, Goku said, his voice a flat, dead calm. He didn't use the Ultra Instinct for speed. He used it for finality. He reached out and grabbed her wrist, his hand glowing with the purple hue of the Hawkeye. He didn't erase her whole body, he targeted the cybernetics. He targeted the cold tech that was keeping her together. Hawkeye. Surgical strike, he whispered. The purple energy snaked through her body. A microscopic fire that ate only the metal and the code. The explosions were internal, thousands of tiny pops as the red ribbon tech was deleted from her cells. Ulma screamed. A human scream this time, as the armor fell away in charred flakes. She collapsed into Goku's arms, her body a broken mess of flesh and sparks. The holographic Zero shrieked in rage. No, The data. The core. You've ruined decades of work. I'm coming for you next, old man, Goku said, looking at the tower. But Bulma gripped his tunic. Her breath was shallow, coming in ragged gasps. Goku. It's not just Jero. He found something else. In the spire. A name, he kept saying. Cell X. Before she could finish, her eyes rolled back. The light of her life flickered and went out. Goku sat in the middle of the industrial wasteland, holding the body of his first friend. Around him, the Red Ribbon Army's machines began to stall and die as the interface was lost. He didn't cry, he didn't roar, he just stood up, Bulma's body light as a feather in his arms. He looked at the chronicler, who was watching from the shadows of a ruined storefront. This reboot is broken, Goku said. Completely and utterly broken. Indeed, the chronicler replied. You've removed the god, and you've removed the machine. But the Cell X, she mentioned, that is the system's final failsafe. If the Keeper cannot manage the reboot, the system will create a perfect Keeper to replace him. Goku looked at the top of the muscle tower. A new key was beginning to stir. It wasn't Frieza's, and it wasn't Jero's. It was a cocktail of everything. Saiyan, Namekian, Frost Demon, and the Void itself. The infinite was no longer a loop. It was a race to the bottom of the soul. Let him come, Goku said, his hair turning a permanent, haunting silver. I've got a lot of apologies to make to the people I've killed. I might as well start by killing the thing that's gonna replace me. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. The Architect of Despair. The weight of Bulma's body in his arms was a physical manifestation of failure. Goku didn't bury her in the iron-choked soil of the Red Ribbon capital. He didn't have time for the luxury of a grave. With a flick of his wrist, he encased her remains in a stasis field of silver ki, suspending her in a pocket dimension where the rot of this broken timeline couldn't touch her. I'll come back for you, he whispered, though the words felt like ashes. When there's a world worth waking up to. He turned his gaze toward the peak of the new muscle tower. The sky above the spire was no longer charcoal, it was a swirling vortex of bruised violets and necrotic greens. The Cell X that Bulma had died to name wasn't just a biological weapon. It was the Stem's answer to a keeper who had gone rogue. Goku didn't fly, he ascended. Each step he took on the air cracked the space beneath his boots, creating shards of reality that fell away like broken glass. He wasn't just fighting an enemy. He was fighting the very architecture of the reboot. As he reached the summit, the air pressure intensified until the iron of the tower began to liquefy. Standing on the observation deck, a platform now floating in a sea of static, was the creature. It wasn't the green, insectoid cell of the original history. This version was terrifyingly elegant. Its skin was the color of bleached bone, etched with the same golden numerals that adorned the chronicler's robes. It stood 7 feet tall, wings of pure light flickering behind it like solar flares. It had no face, only a single, vertical eye that pulsed with the rhythm of a dying heart. So, the creature spoke, its voice a haunting harmony of every person Goku had ever known. He heard Vegeta's pride, Chi-Chi's warmth, and Frieza's cruelty all layered into one. The peasant who found a crown finally arrives. You're the perfect version, huh? Goku squared his shoulders, his silver hair flowing in a wind that didn't exist. The system's new favorite pet. I am the resolution, Son Goku, Cell X said, tilting its head. You were a chaotic variable. You deleted the moon. You erased the tyrant. You murdered the catalyst girl. You were a virus that thinks it's a doctor. I am the antivirus. I am here to delete the keeper and restore the factory settings. Cell X moved. It didn't cross the distance. It simply was in front of Goku. A punch landed. It wasn't a physical blow, it was a conceptual erasure. Goku felt his memories of the World Martial Arts Tournament being ripped out of his mind as he was hurtling through the atmospheric layers. He stabilized 100 miles up, gasping for air. His shoulder was smoking. He's stealing my history, Goku growled. He isn't just killing you, Goku, the chronicler appeared, hovering cross-legged in the vacuum beside him. He is consuming your data. If he wins, you won't just be dead. You will never have existed. The Goku who fought Piccolo, the Goku who went Super Saiyan. It will all become fuel for his perfection. He will become the Goku of the next loop. Not on my watch, Goku roared, and the silver aura didn't just flare, it solidified into armor. He dove back toward the planet, a meteor of divine wrath. They met over the ruins of the city. The shockwave of their collision vaporized the remaining red ribbon citadels for 1,000 miles. Goku unleashed a barrage of strikes, his fists moving with the fluidity of Ultra Instinct, but Cell X was reading the code of his movements before they even reached his brain. I know your style, Keeper, Cell X laughed, catching Goku's fist in a palm that felt like cold marble. I know the Kamehameha. I know the Spirit Bomb. I know the Hawkeye. You are a book I have already finished reading. Cell X fired a beam from its vertical eye. It was a kaleidoscope of every technique Goku had ever faced. It had the piercing heat of a special beam cannon, the destructive weight of a Gallic gun, and the soul-erasing properties of the void. Goku crossed his arms, taking the hit. His skin peeled back, revealing the shimmering, starry essence of the Keeper beneath his flesh. He was being stripped down to his core. You think you know me? Goku's voice shifted, becoming a terrifying, multi-tonal roar. You know the Goku who followed the rules. You know the Goku who stayed in his lane. But I've seen the end of the world. And I'm bored of the script. Goku reached out and grabbed the beam of light. He didn't deflect it. He began to twist it. Using the raw authority of the infinite reboot, he forced the energy to change its nature. He turned the null into mass. The beam became a physical spear of solid reality. He swung it like a club, shattering the bone-white armor on Cell X's chest. The creature recoiled, its single eye widening. Impossible. That is not in the database. There is no record of a Saiyan manipulating the fundamental constants of the loop. That's 'cause I just invented it. Goku closed the distance, his movements now erratic, jagged, and impossible to predict. He wasn't fighting like a martial artist, he was fighting like a glitch. He struck from angles that didn't exist in 3 dimensions. He hit Cell X in the past, the present, and the potential future simultaneously. The creature's wings of light began to shatter. Error. Anomaly escalating. System integrity at 40%. Let's make it 0, Goku hissed. He grabbed Cell X by the throat and flew straight up, pinning the creature against the very ceiling of the reality. He could see the grid lines of the universe glowing faintly in the dark of space. You're just a puppet of a system that's too scared to let life be messy, Goku said, his hand glowing with a white fire that dwarfed the sun. I'm the Keeper, and I'm declaring this world unscripted. He didn't fire a blast. He forced his own ki, his own life, his own memories, his own flaws, into Cell X. He overloaded the perfect being with the imperfect truth of a man who had failed 1,000 times and kept standing. Cell X's body began to bloat, its skin cracking as the sheer weight of Goku's humanity crushed its logical core. Too much noise. Cell X screamed, its face finally forming, a twisted, melting composite of everyone Goku loved. The story cannot contain. Boom. The explosion didn't make a sound. It was a silent whiteout that reset the sky. When the light faded, Cell X was gone. The spire was gone. The Red Ribbon Army was gone. Goku floated in the upper atmosphere, his body tattered, his eyes heavy. He looked down. The world was different again. The industrial wasteland had vanished, replaced by a strange, hybrid landscape. He saw the mountains of Paozu, but he also saw the futuristic ruins of a city that hadn't been built yet. The timelines were merging. The reboot was folding in on itself. You've won the battle, Keeper, the chronicler said, appearing on the edge of a floating piece of debris. But you've broken the container. Look at the stars. Goku looked up. The stars weren't points of light anymore. They were eyes. Millions of them. The higher heavens, the entities that had ordered the Grand Minister to delete the multiverse, were finally paying attention. They're coming, aren't they? Goku asked. The architects, the chronicler whispered. The ones who built the wheel. They're coming to take back the pen. Goku looked at his hand. The golden numerals were starting to appear on his own skin. He was becoming more like the chronicler every second. Let him come, Goku said, a wild, legendary fire burning in his eyes. I've got a whole new story to tell them. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. The Silence of the Architects. The sky didn't just change, it ceased to be a sky. The bruised violets and industrial grays of the failed red ribbon timeline were bleached away, replaced by an infinite, sterile gold. The clouds froze in mid-drift, turning into solid marble sculptures. The wind stopped. The very concept of weather was deleted from the local sector. Goku hung in the center of this golden stillness, his silver hair the only thing moving in a world that had been paused by a higher power. He felt the golden numerals on his skin burning, itching like a brand. He wasn't just Son Goku anymore. He was a piece of the system, a road gear that had grown its own teeth. "So, these are the guys you work for?" Goku asked, his voice echoing in the vacuum. The chronicler didn't respond with words. Instead, the entity prostrated itself, its robes of shifting symbols turning a dull, submissive gray. Then, they descended. They didn't come in ships. They didn't fly. They simply manifested as three colossal silhouettes against the golden backdrop. Each one was the size of a solar system. Their forms vague and shifting, vast, geometric shadows that felt like the blueprints of reality given sentience. "Keeper 001, a voice boomed. It wasn't a sound, it w. As a physical weight that forced Goku's knees to buckle. It was the vibration of the fundamental laws of physics speaking in unison. "You have exceeded your mandate." The experiment was to reboot, not to rewrite. Goku gritted his teeth, the silver aura of Ultra Instinct flaring with a violent, jagged defiance. He forced himself to stand upright, his small body trembling under the atmospheric pressure of the architect's gaze. The experiment was a failure, Goku shouted back, his voice small but sharp. "You guys sat up there playing with marbles while people were bleeding. You made a world where my friends were just data. I'm just balancing the books. The data is sacrosanct," another architect intoned. This one was shaped like a sprawling, fractaling star. The girl was a catalyst. The tyrant was a necessary pressure. By removing them, you have created a paradox that threatens the stability of the entire causality chain. You have broken the wheel. Then maybe the wheel needed breaking. Goku roared. He didn't wait for a verdict. He knew how these things went. When the gods started talking about stability, they were already reaching for the eraser. Goku lunged. He didn't target the silhouettes, he couldn't. They were too big, too abstract. Instead, he targeted the space between them. He gathered every ounce of the nothingness he had absorbed, every bit of the silver fire that had sustained him through the void, and he clapped his hands together. Infinite, Kaioken, X infinity. The silver aura turned a blinding, transcendent white gold. The heat coming off Goku was so intense it began to melt the golden sky. He became a needle of pure, concentrated existence, sowing his own path through the architect's domain. He struck the base of the star-shaped architect. The impact sent a ripple through the golden dimension. For the first time, one of the shadows flickered. A crack appeared in the geometric silhouette, a fissure of black void in the gold. "Impudence," the third architect whispered. "This one was a perfect circle, unmoving and terrifying. You were a program trying to delete the hardware." The circle architect extended a hand, a beam of white lig. That was the mathematical definition of end. Goku felt it coming. It wasn't something he could dodge. It was a command. It was the universe telling him that he was finished. He closed his eyes. He didn't think about the power. He didn't think about the UI or the Hawkeye. He thought about the smell of the forest. He thought about Krillin's laugh. He thought about the weight of his own sons in his arms. He thought about the humanity that the architects viewed as noise. "I'm not a program," Goku whispered, his eyes snapping open. They weren't silver. They weren't black. They were a deep, SWIRLING nebula of every color he had ever seen. "I'm a Saiyan, and we don't know when to quit." He didn't fight the beam. He absorbed it. He let the end enter his body. He let the erasure flow through his veins. But instead of letting it delete him, he used his own soul as a filter. He took the end and gave it a beginning. His body grew. The child Goku frame shattered, replaced by the adult warrior in his prime. But his GI wasn't orange. It was woven from the very golden light of the dimension, etched with the scars of a billion timelines. He reached out and grabbed the white beam with his bare hands. twisting it until the mathematics of the attack broke. He swung the refracted light back at the architects, a scythe of reclaimed fate. The golden dimension screamed. The marble clouds shattered. The three silhouettes recoiled as the end they had sent was returned to them, poisoned by the messy, unpredictable energy of a mortal soul. "This is my story now," Goku yelled, his voice carrying the weight of the infinite. "And I'm tired of the first chapter." He flew upward, toward the very center of the circle architect. He didn't use a blast. He used a headbutt. A raw, brutal, and utterly Goku move. The collision was the sound of a trillion mirrors breaking. The golden dimension fractured. Goku felt himself falling, not through the air, but through layers of reality. He saw the red ribbon world flicker and die. He saw the Frieza world vanish. He saw 1,000 different versions of himself. One where he was a king, one where he was a hermit, one where he was a monster. He was falling toward the true core of the reboot. The place where the ink was kept. "You've done it, Keeper," the chronicler's voice echoed, fading away. "You've broken into the script room. But be careful, once you see the writer. You can never go back to being just a character." Goku hit a floor that felt like warm paper. He stood up, his breathing heavy, his golden-etched GI smoking. He was in a small, cramped room. It looked like an old office in West City. There were stacks of paper everywhere. A single desk, a single lamp, and sitting at the desk was a small, bipedal bird in a gas mask, holding a pen. Goku blinked. You're the one. You're the architect." The bird looked up, its eyes twinkling behind the glass of the mask. It didn't look like a god. It looked like an overworked cartoonist. "I'm just the one who draws the lines, Son Goku," the bird said, its voice a scratchy, humble chirp. "But you're the first one to ever jump off the page and punch me in the beak." Goku looked at the desk. There was a sheet of paper with his face on it. The ink was wet. "Fix it," Goku said, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and hope. "Fix the world. Give them back their lives. No more reboots. No more experiments." Single quote. The bird sighed, putting the pen down. "I can't fix what's already been lived, Goku. But I can give you the pen. You're the keeper of the infinite reboot. That means the story belongs to you. But tell me, do you have enough ink in your soul to write a happy ending for everyone? Or are you just gonna make the same mistakes I did?" Goku looked at the pen. It was heavy. It felt like it weighed as much as a galaxy. "I'm gonna write a story," Goku said, reaching for the pen. "Where nobody has to be a unit ever again." As his fingers touched the pen, the office began to dissolve. The bird vanished, leaving only a faint, amused cackle. Goku found himself standing in the center of a blank, white canvas. The again was finally here. But the page was empty. "All right," Goku said, dipping the pen into his own silver gold aura. Chapter 1. Let's start with a girl in a yellow car, looking for a ball with stars on it. And this time, she makes it home. But as he moved the pen to the page, a hand reached out from the whiteness and grabbed his wrist. A hand covered in black, chitinous scales. "The story isn't yours yet, Saiyan," a voice hissed. A voice Goku knew better than his own. He looked up. It was him. But it wasn't the keeper. It was the Goku Black of a reboot that had never been erased, the shadow of his own desire to be the strongest. Given form by the very ink he was trying to use. Every story needs a villain. The dark Goku smiled, a rose-colored aura erupting from his soul. "And I'm the one who's gonna burn your book before you even finish the first sentence." Goku gripped the pen tighter. The battle for the script had begun. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The ink-stained reflection. The white canvas didn't reflect light, it swallowed it. Goku stood at the center of the absolute zero of potentiality, the cosmic pen clutched in a hand that was now a mixture of mortal flesh and divine script. Opposite him, the silhouette of his own shadow had stepped out of the margins, manifesting as a version of Goku Black that made the previous iteration look like a street thug. This wasn't just a rogue apprentice in a stolen body. This was the personification of Goku's own obsession, the part of him that lived for the fight, the part that craved stronger enemies even at the cost of the world's safety. He wore a GI of tattered obsidian. And his hair didn't just glow rose, it bled a dark, violet miasma that curdled the very air of the script room. You think you're a hero because you want to save them. Dark Goku laughed, and the sound was like the tearing of parchment. You're a hypocrite, keeper. You didn't break the wheel for them. You broke it because you wanted to be the one holding the leash. You're just like me. You just hide it behind a polite smile and a bowl of ramen. I ain't nothing like you, Goku growled, his golden-etched eyes shimmering. I fought to protect. You fight to erase. Protection is just a slow form of erasure. The dark reflection countered. He raised a hand, and a blade of rose-colored energy extended from his palm. Not a physical blade, but a literal line of dark ink that cut through the white space. If you write a world where everyone is safe, you write a world where nobody grows. No struggle, no Zenkai, no evolution. You'd turn the multiverse into a stagnant pond. I'm here to keep the fire hot. Dark Goku moved with a speed that bypassed the concept of distance. He was simply there, the dark ink blade whistling toward Goku's throat. Goku parried with the pen. The Khaleesi on sent a spray of black and silver ink across the white void. Where the droplets landed, tiny, chaotic sub-realities began to form and collapse in microseconds. Worlds where Goku was a king, worlds where he was a monster. Worlds where he never left the pod. Don't you see? Dark Goku hissed, the two of them locked in a struggle of pure intent. The more we fight here, the more we ruin the page. Every drop of blood we shed as a billion lives we're distorting. Then I'll just have to end this before the page gets too messy. Goku kicked the reflection in the chest, the impact sounding like a mountain being hit by a comet. He didn't follow up with a punch. He used the pen. He drew a circle in the air, a shimmering ring of silver light that acted as a localized reboot. The circle expanded, catching Dark Goku. It was meant to reset him, to turn the shadow back into the light. But the reflection just smirked. He reached into the ring and tore it open with his bare hands. You're using the system's tools, Goku. I am the system's resentment. Dark Goku roared, and his aura shifted. It wasn't just Rose anymore. It began to take on the jagged, terrifying quality of the debugger and the architects. He grew in size, his muscles twisting until he looked like a feral god of destruction. Super Saiyan Rose. Final edit. The reflection unleashed a barrage of key blasts that weren't spheres of energy, but geometric symbols of erasure. Each one that Goku dodged hit the floor of the script room, burning holes into the deeper layers of reality. Through the holes, Goku could see the previous timelines, the Red Ribbon world, the Frieza world, all of them dissolving into a sea of static. He's not trying to win the pen, Goku realized, his breath coming in sharp, silver plumes. He's trying to destroy the inkwell. He'd rather have nothingness than a world he can't control. I won't let you do it. Goku yelled. He dropped the pen. He didn't need the tool if he was the essence. He closed his eyes and reached into the deepest part of his Saiyan soul, the part that loved the earth, the part that missed his sons, the part that had forgiven even his worst enemies. He didn't transform into a new level of Super Saiyan. He did the opposite. He collapsed his power. The silver gold aura, the golden numerals, the divine weight, all of it was sucked into his center until he looked like a normal man in a tattered orange GI. What is this? Dark Goku sneered, charging a massive, violet-black ball of energy between his palms. Surrendering. Going back to being a pathetic mortal. I'm going back to basics, Goku said, his voice a calm, terrifying ripple. The Keeper isn't a god. The Keeper is a gardener. And it's time to pull the weeds. Dark Goku fired. The final edit beam was a torrent of absolute negation. A wave of darkness meant to bleach the soul. Goku didn't dodge. He walked forward. As the beam hit him, it didn't burn. It flowed around him like water around a stone. Goku was no longer a unit, or an anomaly, that the system could target. He was the protagonist, the one constant that the story couldn't exist without. He was the ink itself. He reached the dark reflection, who was now trembling. His rose aura flickering like a dying bulb. How? The shadow whispered. I have all your power. I have all your hate. That's the problem, Goku said, placing a hand on the reflection's chest. You've only got the parts of me I didn't want. But a story needs the whole man. Goku didn't punch him. He embraced him. The silver and the black collided, merging in a blinding flash of gray. Goku felt the dark reflection's rage, his loneliness, his hunger for more, and he accepted it. He pulled the shadow back into his heart, stitching his fractured soul back together. The script room began to shake. The white canvas started to ripple like the surface of a lake. Goku stood alone. The dark reflection was gone. The pen lay on the floor, glowing with a soft, steady light. Goku picked it up. His hands were no longer shaking. "All right," Goku said, looking at the empty page. "No more gods. No more reboots. Just life." He touched the pen to the center of the canvas. This time, he didn't draw a battle. He didn't draw a power-up. He drew a small, blue-roofed house in the middle of a forest. He drew a table set for dinner. He drew a world where the Dragon Balls weren't a shortcut to godhood, but a legend that brought people together. But as the ink began to spread, creating the foundations of a new, permanent reality, a voice whispered from the floorboards of the room. "A Voic." That sounded like 1,000 crickets chirping in unison. "A beautiful dream, Keeper. But you forgot one thing." Goku looked down. The shadows of the room were coalescing into a shape he hadn't seen before. It was small, round, and wore a crown made of broken stars. It was Zeno, but not the Zeno who played with planets. This was the original Zeno, the one who had existed before the first reboot. The one who had grown tired of every story ever told. "The story only ends," the true Zeno said, his eyes two bottomless pits of cosmic boredom, "when I say it's time to close the book. And I haven't seen a good twist in 1,000,000,000,000 years. Zeno raised a finger. The new world Goku was drawing began to crack. "Show me something new, Goku," the small god whispered. "Or I'll erase the writer too." Goku gripped the pen, his knuckles turning white. The final boss wasn't a villain. It was the audience. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The Audience of One. The script room, which had felt like a sanctuary of creation just moments ago, transformed into a claustrophobic cage of absolute judgment. The true Zeno didn't radiate ki, he radiated the lack of it. He was the zero at the end of every equation, the period at the end of the last sentence. Goku stood over his half-drawn world, the small house, the peaceful forest, protecting the wet ink with his own body. He felt the weight of the cosmic pen vibrating, its tip leaking a desperate silver light that tried to ward off the encroaching boredom of the king of all. "I've seen this one, Goku," Zeno said, floating upward until he was level with Goku's nose. His voice wasn't high-pitched or playful anymore. It was the sound of a desert wind. "The hero wins. The hero makes a world of peace. The hero grows old and dies. Boring. So boring. I've watched that version a quintillion times across a Googleplex of reboots. It ain't about being exciting for you," Goku snapped, his voice echoing against the white walls. "It's about them. It's about letting people live without some god deciding they're a bug in the system." Zeno tilted his head, his eyes reflecting the blank canvas. "But they are bugs. They are just flickers of light in a dark room I built. If the light doesn't dance in a way I like, why shouldn't I turn it off? I want a story that doesn't end. I want a twist that makes me gasp. I want a spectacle." Zeno waved a hand. The drawing of the blue-roofed house didn't just vanish, it inverted. The ink turned into a swarm of black wasps that flew into the air, stitching themselves into a horrific tapestry of every tragedy Goku had ever failed to prevent. "You want to be the keeper?" Zeno asked. "Then keep me entertained. If you can't, I'll take the pen back and let the nothingness have the whole library." Goku felt a cold sweat prickle his skin. This wasn't a fight he could win with a punch, but it was a fight he couldn't afford to lose with a shrug. He looked at the pen. He looked at the blankness. A twist, Goku thought. He wants something he's never seen. He's seen me win. He's seen me lose. He's seen me become a god. What hasn't he seen? Goku's grip on the pen softened. He looked at the true Zeno and did something the king of all never expected. He laughed. It wasn't a defiant roar or a warrior's chuckle. It was a genuine, belly-deep laugh that filled the sterile room with the most human sound imaginable. "What's funny?" Zeno's eyes narrowed, the broken stars on his crown beginning to pulse with a dangerous, white heat. "I am the end of all things, Goku. Why are you making that noise?" "Because you're the most powerful guy in existence," Goku said, wiping a tear from his eye. and you're the only one who's actually a prisoner. You're stuck in the theater, Zeno. You're bored because you think you know the ending. But you forgot the best part of any story. And what is that? The part where the character stops following the lines, Goku said. With a sudden, violent motion, Goku didn't touch the pen to the paper. He turned the pen on himself. He drove the nib of the cosmic pen into his own heart. The script room exploded in a flash of prismatic light. Zeno recoiled, his void-like eyes widening. What are you doing? If you delete yourself, the keeper position vanishes. The reboots stop. Everything goes black. I ain't deleting myself, Goku gasped, his body beginning to dissolve into pure, unrefined ink. I'm merging the ink with the blood. I'm making the story real. Goku's physical form shattered, but he didn't die. He became the inkwell. He poured himself onto the white canvas, not as a drawing, but as a flood. He didn't draw a house. He didn't draw a forest. He poured his memories, his ki, and his very soul into the fabric of the reality itself. He became the atoms of the trees. He became the gravity of the planets. He became the breath in the lungs of every living thing. He was rewriting the universe by becoming the universe. Look, Zeno. Goku's voice came from the ground, the sky, and the air. I'm not the hero anymore. I'm the setting. I'm the rules. And I'm making a rule you're gonna hate. The white canvas transformed. It wasn't a reboot. It was an evolution. A new world formed. One that looked like the old Earth, but with a fundamental difference. The power levels were gone. The destiny was gone. The script was burned. Goku had used his divi, nay authority, to strip away the tears of the gods. He had created a world where even the smallest insect had the potential to defy the stars, and where no god, not even Zeno, could see the outcome. It was a world of absolute, terrifying free will. Zeno landed on the new grass, his boots sinking into the soil. He looked around. For the first time in an eternity, he couldn't see the future. The lines were gone. The world was a mess of unpredictable, chaotic life that didn't follow a narrative arc. I can't see what happens next, Zeno whispered. He sounded small. He sounded interested. That's the twist, Goku's voice whispered in the wind. The story doesn't have an ending because I'm not writing it. They are. Goku's spirit coalesced into a faint, shimmering image of a man standing under a cherry blossom tree. He looked tired. He looked old. He looked happy. You cheated, Zeno said, looking at the shimmering Goku. You gave up your throne to become the dirt. Best seat in the house, Goku replied. But as Zeno began to smile, the ground beneath them trembled. This wasn't a tremor of life. It was a tremor of the void. From the edges of the new world, the white static began to return. It wasn't Zeno's doing. It was the system itself. The script room was a part of a larger machine, an automated process of creation and destruction, and Goku's free will world was an illegal file. The architects weren't the bosses. Goku, the chronicler, appeared one last time, his body half erased by the white static. The system is a machine that demands order. You've created a world of chaos. The machine is initiating a hard reset. It's going to wipe the drive, and you with it. A massive, digital scythe appeared in the sky, miles long and made of the same bone-white material as the debugger. It began to descend, a horizontal line of absolute erasure that intended to level the new world and return it to the blank canvas. Goku looked up. He was a ghost in his own creation. He had no more power to draw. He had used all his ink. Zeno, Goku said, looking at the small god. You said you wanted a spectacle. You wanted a story you didn't know the end to. Zeno looked at the scythe. He looked at the vibrant, messy world Goku had died to create. He looked at the ghost of the man who had dared to laugh at him. The machine is trying to turn off my television, Zeno said, his eyes turning a deep, predatory gold. Zeno didn't raise a finger. He just exhaled. The white static hit the golden breath of the king of all and shattered. The scythe cracked, its digital logic being overridden by the sheer, petty whim of a god who had finally found a show he liked. I like this world, Zeno said, sitting down in the grass and picking up a ladybug. It's noisy. It's confusing. And I want to see what that blue-haired girl does now that she doesn't have a script. Zeno looked at Goku. Go back, keeper. You're not a ghost yet. There's a girl in a yellow car who just got lost in the woods. She's gonna need someone to show her the way. Goku felt a pull. The ink was calling him back into a body. One more time, Goku asked. No, Zeno replied, watching the ladybug fly away. For the first time, Goku vanished. He woke up on a rock in Mount Paozu. He was a boy again. He had a tail. He had a power pole. But in his heart, he felt the weight of 1,000,000,000,000 years and the warmth of 1,000,000,000 lives. He heard the sound of an engine. A yellow car skidded around a corner, crashing into a tree. A girl with blue hair stepped out, coughing through the smoke, holding a small, glowing radar. Goku smiled. He didn't have the pen. He didn't have the silver fire. He just had a journey. Hey, Goku shouted, jumping down from the rock. You need some help. The girl looked at him, and for a split second, her eyes widened as if she remembered a ghost. Then, she scowled. Watch it, kid. I'm on a very important mission. The story had begun, and this time, nobody knew the ending. But deep in the shadows of the forest, a single drop of black ink remained. A drop that looked like a cold, crimson eye. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10. The Residue of Reckoning. The air on Mount Paozu was no longer heavy with the scent of cosmic ozone or the metallic tang of the red ribbon's iron lungs. It smelled of wet pine needles, scorched rubber from Bulma's tires, and the simple, honest dampness of a mountain morning. To any other observer, this was the start of a classic adventure. But to Son Goku, every breath was a miracle etched in borrowed ink. He stood before Bulma, his small frame vibrating with a strange duality. He was a 4-year-old boy with a tail and a rumbling stomach, but tucked behind his eyes was the exhaustion of a man who had seen the heat death of 1,000 universes. He looked at Bulma, the real Bulma, not the cybernetic horror he had been forced to erase, and felt a lump in his throat that no amount of roasted fish could soothe. Hey, kid, are you deaf? Bulma shouted, waving a hand in front of his face. She looked exactly as she should. 16, arrogant, wearing that ridiculous pink dress, and radiating a life force that was gloriously unscripted. I asked, if you've seen a glass ball with stars inside it, and don't you dare try to eat it. Goku blinked, the silver ghosts of his previous lives receding into the basement of his consciousness. I got one. It was my grandpa's, but it ain't for eating. He spoke the lines, but the cadence was off. There was a gravity to his voice, a USA grit that didn't belong in a child's mouth. Bulma narrowed her eyes, stepping closer. You're a weird one, aren't you? You talk like you've been smoking cigars in a back alley for 20 years. She shrugged, her desire for the Dragon Balls overriding her suspicion. Whatever. Look, I'm Bulma, I'm a genius, and I'm going to change the world. You want to come along? I could use a bodyguard who doesn't look like he's going to cry. Bodyguard, Goku thought. Yeah, that's exactly what I am now. But I ain't guarding her from bears. I'm guarding her from the void. As they began their trek, Goku felt the free will world he had established settling into place. Zeno was out there somewhere, a silent spectator in the grass, but the system, the great mechanical architect of the reboots, wasn't done. That single drop of black ink he had seen in the shadows wasn't a hallucination. It was a residual. When Goku merged his soul with the ink to create this reality, he hadn't been able to filter out everything. The darkness he had pulled back into his heart, the malice of the dark reflection. The cold logic of Cell X, the genocidal hunger of Frieza, had left a stain. It was a sentient cancer, a piece of the old script that refused to be deleted. Stop, Goku said suddenly, planting his feet. What now? I have a schedule, kid. If we don't make it to the next valley by, get behind me, Goku commanded. His voice didn't just drop an octave, it resonated with the power of the Keeper. The forest went silent, the birds stopped chirping, the wind died. From the shadows of a massive oak tree, a liquid darkness began to seep across the ground. It didn't follow the laws of light. It moved like a predatory oil slick. The darkness rose, coiling into a shape that shifted between a man and a beast. It had no skin, only a surface of swirling, violet-black ink. In the center of its face sat a single, crimson eye, the same eye Goku had seen at the end of the last reboot. The Keeper lives, the residue hissed. The voice was a distorted mashup of every villain Goku had ever killed. You gave them freedom. But freedom is just unmonitored rot. What the hell is that? Bulma screamed, clutching her dragon radar like a shield. Is that an alien? A demon? Goku, do something. Goku didn't reach for his power pole. He didn't need wood to fight ink. He closed his eyes, summoning a fraction of the silver heat that lived in his marrow. He didn't want Ogo Ultra Instinct. Not yet, because the sheer pressure of that form would shatter Bulma's fragile, unscripted reality. He had to fight with surgical intent. You're the part of the story I couldn't finish, Goku said, stepping toward the ink beast. The leftover hate. Well, consider this the final edit. Goku lunged. He didn't use a punch. He used a palm strike infused with the Hawkeye of 1,000 failed worlds. The impact was a dull thud, like a fist hitting a vat of tar. The residue didn't recoil. It flowed around Goku's arm, the black ink burning his skin like concentrated acid. Goku felt the entity trying to bypass his flesh, trying to reach the script buried in his soul. It wanted to use him as a bridge to rewrite the world back into a nightmare. You are our host, the residue gurgled. Without the dark, the light has no meaning. I've heard the lectures before. Goku roared. He flared his aura, but he kept it contained, a tight sphere of shimmer. Ing white gold only inches from his skin. The heat vaporized the ink touching him, sending plumes of foul-smelling purple smoke into the air. He spun, delivering a roundhouse kick that carried the weight of a collapsing star. The residue was torn in half, the black ink splashing against the trees. Where it hit the bark, the wood instantly turned to ash. But the pieces didn't stay apart. They vibrated, drawing toward each other like magnets. Within seconds, the beast was whole again, and this time, it was growing. It began to absorb the surrounding forest, turning the green leaves and brown earth into more of itself. Goku, it's eating everything, Bulma yelled, her voice cracking with terror. I can't delete it here, Goku realized. If I use a full-scale Hawkeye, I'll erase the forest and Bulma with it. I'm too strong for this world, and it's making me weak. This was the Keeper's paradox. To protect the fragility of life, he had to handicap the very power meant to save it. Bulma, run, get to the car and don't look back. I'm not leaving you with that ink blob. Go. Goku's ki was so powerful it physically pushed her back 20 feet. As Bulma scrambled away, Goku turned his full attention to the residue. It was now 20 feet tall, a towering monolith of concentrated misery. It lunged, a massive ink fist descending like a falling building. Goku didn't move. He took the hit. The fist crushed him into the earth, creating a crater 30 feet deep. Inside the darkness, the residue whispered directly into his mind. Why fight? You're tired, son Goku. You've lived too long. Let us take the pen. We'll make a world where you can finally rest. A world where no one ever has to fight again. I don't want to rest, Goku gasped, his small ribs cracking under the pressure. I want to see what happens next. He reached out and grabbed the ink fist from the inside. He didn't push it away. He began to pull it into himself. If you want a host, Goku growled, his eyes flashing a terrifying, blinding silver, then welcome to the void. Let's see how you handle a trillion years of nothingness. Goku opened the basement of his soul, the pocket dimension where He had stored the silence of the pre-reboot. He acted as a vacuum, sucking the residue out of the forest and into the lightless corner of his own being. The beast screamed, a sound of pure existential horror, as it was dragged into the one place where its malice had no fuel. The ink fist thinned, the tower of darkness collapsed, and the forest began to breathe again. With a final, violent slurp, the residue was gone. Goku collapsed in the center of the crater. He was smoking, his skin covered in black chemical burns, his small body trembling from the strain of holding a sentient apocalypse inside his chest. He felt the residue scratching at the walls of his mind, a muffled, angry buzzing. He had trapped it, but he hadn't killed it. He was now a living prison. Goku. He looked up. Bulma was standing at the edge of the crater. Her face pale, her eyes wide. She looked at the devastation. The charred trees, the massive hole in the earth, and the small, broken boy in the center of it. What are you? She whispered. Goku didn't answer. He couldn't. He just coughed up a small cloud of purple smoke and passed out. When he woke up, he was in the back of Bulma's car. The sun was setting, casting long, orange shadows across the road. Bulma was driving in silence, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. You're awake, she said, her voice small. Yeah, Goku croaked. Sorry about the mess. The mess. Bulma laughed, a jagged, nervous sound. You just turned into a lighthouse and ate a shadow monster. I don't think mess covers it. She pulled the car over and looked at him. I don't know who you are, Goku. You look like a kid, but you've got the eyes of a man who's seen the end of the world. Are you an alien? A god? Goku looked at his reflection in the window. He saw the child. He saw the keeper. He saw the cage. I'm just a guy who's trying to get the story right this time, Goku said. And I'm gonna need those Dragon Balls. Not for a wish, but to make sure that thing stays locked up. Bulma looked at him for a long time. She saw the pain, the legend, and the sheer, stubborn will to keep going. She sighed and put the car back in gear. Fine, but if you're a god, you're a really hungry one. There's some jerky in the glove box. Eat up, keeper. We've got a long way to go. Goku smiled, a real, genuine smile. He took the jerky and looked out at the horizon. The first glitch had been contained. But as the car sped toward the next adventure, Goku felt a cold chill. The residue wasn't the only thing he had brought back from the void. In the distance, across the ocean, a small island sat in the sun. On that island, an old man with a turtle shell was looking at the horizon. But he wasn't thinking about martial arts. He was looking at a set of golden numerals that had just appeared on the palm of his hand. The system was fighting back. If it couldn't delete Goku, it was going to draft his friends. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. The Conscripted Soul. The island was a speck of emerald dust in a vast, indifferent sapphire sea. Master Roshi, the turtle hermit, the man who had supposedly seen everything there was to see in the world of martial arts, stood on the porch of Kame House. The air should have tasted of salt and cheap beer. Instead, it tasted of ozone and mathematics. Roshi stared at his right hand. The skin was weathered like old parchment, but etched into the palm was a sequence of shifting, golden symbols. They didn't just glow, they hummed with a frequency that made his teeth ache. They were the same numerals Goku had seen in the script room, the markings of the system. I'm too old for this kind of magic, Roshi whispered, his voice cracking. He tried to close his fist, but the symbols flared, a sharp spike of white-hot agony shooting up his arm. Suddenly, his mind wasn't his own. He saw the previous reboots. He saw the Red Ribbon's Iron World. He saw the Frieza world. He saw the moment Goku had punched the architects. The system wasn't just observing. It was desperate. It had lost its primary keeper to the free will anomaly, and now it was seeking a counterbalance. It was turning the legends of the Earth into its own localized debuggers. Target identified, Roshi said, his voice dropping into a mechanical, hollow drone. His eyes, usually twinkling with a perverted but kind wisdom, turned into flat, glowing pits of gold. His back straightened. The frailty of his century-old body was overridden by a surge of raw, celestial code. He didn't just stand up. He levitated, the sand beneath the house swirling into a perfect geometric spiral. Thousands of miles away, Bulma's capsule car hummed along a mountain pass. Goku sat in the passenger seat, his eyes closed, his spirit locked in a silent, brutal wrestling match with the residue in his soul. The ink beast was screaming in the basement of his mind, scratching at the silver walls of its prison. Every time Goku's focus wavered, a drop of black bile would seep into his spiritual veins, making his hand twitch or his vision blur into violet static. You're doing it again, Bulma said, not taking her eyes off the road. I'm fighting a war inside my head, face. It's creepy, Goku. You look like you're about to melt. Goku exhaled, a small puff of silver smoke escaping his lips. It's just a headache, Bulma. Don't worry about it. A headache, kid. The last time you had a headache, you ate a shadow beast. If you get a migraine, are you going to swallow the moon? Goku looked at her. He wanted to tell her the truth. He wanted to tell her that the world was a fragile drawing and he was a man holding a blowtorch. But he couldn't. The moment he explained the system to her, she would become self-aware in the eyes of the machine, and the machine would delete her to preserve the narrative. I just need to find the next ball, Goku said, his voice raspy. The faster we get him, the safer you'll be. The radar blipped, a sharp, insistent sound. Speaking of which, Bulma said, pointing to the screen, we've got a signal. It's close, but it's moving fast, really fast. A shadow eclipsed the car. Goku's instincts screamed. It was a sensation he hadn't felt since the golden dimension, the feeling of a fixed point moving toward him. He looked out the window and saw a streak of purple and orange descending from the clouds. Crash! The car was flipped like a toy. Bulma screamed as the vehicle rolled, glass shattering, metal groaning. Goku moved in a blur, catching Bulma in midair and kicking the car door open before the vehicle slammed into a rock face. He landed on the grass, shielding Bulma with his body. He stood up, his small face grim, the silver fire already flickering around his knuckles. Standing in the middle of the road was Master Roshi. But it wasn't the Roshi Goku knew. He wasn't wearing his Hawaiian shirt or his sunglasses. He was clad in a robe of pure, shimmering light. His muscles were gorged with a power that felt artificial, like a balloon inflated with too much air. The golden numerals on his palm were now crawling up his neck like a glowing tattoo. Master Roshi, Goku breathed, his heart sinking. Not you too. Unit 001 Saiyan, Roshi spoke. And the sound was like 1,000 voices speaking in unison. You have introduced a foreign variable into the logic of the world. Free will is a corruption of the narrative. I am the system's correction. Goku, is that the old guy you told me about? Bulma gasped, leaning against a tree, her forehead bleeding from a small cut. He looks like he's made of neon. Get back, Bulma, Goku growled. He's not himself. He's a puppet. Roshi moved. There was no wind-up, no stance. He simply accelerated through the local space, appearing in front of Goku and Delhi, varying a palm strike that carried the force of a tectonic shift. Goku blocked, but the impact sent him skidding back 100 yards, his boots carving deep trenches in the asphalt. The strength was divine. It was the power of the architects channeled through a mortal frame. I don't want to fight you, Grandpa. Goku yelled, his small voice echoing with the authority of the Keeper. Fight it. The system is just using you. The system is the truth, Roshi countered, his voice devoid of emotion. You are the lie. You are the dream that thinks it's the dreamer. Roshi raised his hands. Kamehameha. Divine protocol. The beam wasn't blue. It was a blinding, clinical white, filled with the same digital static Goku had seen in the script room. It wasn't a blast of energy meant to burn. It was a beam of reality correction, meant to override Goku's existence. Goku couldn't dodge. Bulma was directly behind him. He dug his heels in and crossed his arms. Infinite guard. The white beam hit him. Goku felt the logic of the attack trying to dismantle his atoms. It was telling his body that he was 4 years old, that he had never seen the void, that he was just a child in a story. It was trying to erase his memories of the future to make him fit the current chapter. No, Goku thought, his teeth bleeding from the strain. I am the Keeper. I am the one who saw the end. I am the one who remembers. He flared his silver aura, the UI heat clashing with the system's cold code. The air around them began to pixelate. The trees turned into cubes of data. The road became a grid of glowing lines. They were fighting on the very edge of the world's render distance. If I have to break your bones to save your soul, Roshi, then so be it. Goku exploded forward, a silver comet. He bypassed Roshi's guard and delivered a flurry of strikes to the old man's chest. Each hit wasn't a punch. It was a Hawkeye light, a vibration meant to shake the golden numerals off Roshi's skin. But the system was stubborn. Every time Goku damaged the correction, the golden light would instantly stitch the flesh back together. Roshi was a meat puppet with infinite health, a boss fight with no kill condition. You cannot win, Keeper, Roshi said, grabbing Goku's head with a hand that felt like iron. The world wants to be scripted. The world wants the safety of the loop. You are the only one who wants the chaos of the new. Roshi began to squeeze. Goku felt his skull groaning. The white light from Roshi's eyes began to pour into Goku's own, a digital infection trying to hijack his brain. I need a distraction, Goku thought. I need to break the link. He looked toward Bulma. She was watching, her eyes wide with a mix of terror and a strange, nascent realization. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the dragon radar. Goku, she screamed. The ball, it's right there, in his shirt. Goku saw it. The 4-star ball was embedded in Roshi's chest, acting as the battery for the system's power. E-Machine had used the most precious thing. Goku had to turn his mentor into a weapon. Sorry, Grandpa, Goku whispered. He didn't use a punch. He reached into the residue, the black ink trapped in his own soul, and pulled out a single thin needle of darkness. He drove the ink needle into the 4-star ball. The reaction was instantaneous. The pure, unscripted light of the Dragon Ball collided with the malicious, old script of the residue. The resulting explosion was a logical paradox. The system's code couldn't handle the interference. The golden numerals on Roshi's skin turned red, then black, then evaporated into a cloud of steam. The light in his eyes vanished, replaced by the dull, tired look of an old man who had been through a thresher. Roshi collapsed, the 4-star ball falling from his chest and rolling into the dirt. Goku caught him before he hit the ground. The divine robes had vanished, leaving Roshi in his tattered Hawaiian shirt, his skin pale and cold. Goku, Roshi gasped, his hand trembling as he reached for the boy's face. The wheel, it's so loud, stop the noise. I've got you, Grandpa, Goku said, his voice thick with emotion. The noise is gone. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Roshi's eyes cleared for a moment. He looked at the silver-haired boy and smiled, a real, human smile. You always were a troublesome student. Don't let him. Close the book, kid. Roshi's eyes closed. He wasn't dead, but his ki was a flickering candle, exhausted by the system's possession. Goku stood up, the 4-star ball in his hand. It was cracked, a thin black K vein of ink running through its center. He had saved Roshi, but he had corrupted the very thing he was trying to protect. He looked up at the sky. The sun was gone, replaced by a swirling vortex of golden light. The system wasn't going away. It was escalating. If it couldn't use Roshi, it would find someone else. It would find Krillin. It would find Yamcha. It would turn the entire world into a firing squad. The free will world. The chronicler's voice echoed, sounding more like a warning than a greeting. It's a beautiful idea, Goku. But the system is a machine of balance. For every new moment you create, it must create a correction. You've made a world where anything can happen, which means the system can do anything to stop you. Goku looked at Bulma, who was kneeling beside the unconscious Roshi. She looked at the crack in the Dragon Ball, then at Goku. This isn't just about the balls anymore, is it? She asked. No, Goku said, his hair turning a permanent, haunting silver. It's about the writer, and I'm starting to think he's a lot more than just a bird with a pen. Goku looked toward the west. In the distance, a mountain began to transform. It didn't erode, it shifted. Its rocks turning into the shape of a massive, reclining man. The earth itself was being drafted. Let's go, Bulma, Goku said, picking up the cracked ball. We've got 5 more to find. And I think the world is gonna try to eat us before we get the next one. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The Geometry of Extermination. The world didn't just feel alive, it felt sentient and hateful. As Bulma's second capsule car, a rugged, all-terrain scout, roared toward the western wastes, the very geography began to rebel. The road beneath their tires didn't just crumble, it rearranged itself into a labyrinth of jagged obsidian spikes. The trees didn't just sway, they leaned with a calculated, predatory intent, their branches sharpening into spears of organic data. Goku sat in the passenger seat, his small body a vessel for a war that was no longer silent. The residue, the ink beast he had swallowed, was feeding on the system's escalating aggression. Every time the earth shifted to kill them, the darkness in Goku's gut purred, urging him to let go, to unleash the old script, and level the continent. Goku, the radar is going haywire. Bulma shouted over the roar of the engine. She was white-knuckling the steering wheel, her face a mask of grease and determination. It's not just one signal anymore. It's like the whole planet is pinging as a Dragon Ball. Goku looked at the screen. The GR-EN grid was a solid blur of pulsing yellow dots. The system is spoofing the signal. It's trying to lead us into a trap. Or worse, it's turning the balls into landmines. He looked out the window. In the distance, the mountain that had begun to transform, Mount Fry Pan, was no longer a mountain. It was a titan. Ox King, a man who should have been a mountain of muscle and fatherly concern, had been drafted. His biological form had been overridden by the system's architecture, growing into a 500-foot-tall colossus of stone, iron, and glowing circuitry. Identity. Anomaly 001, the Mountain King boomed. His voice a landslide that shattered the car's windows. You have refused the correction. You have corrupted the mentor. Now, the Foundation will crush the error. Ox King's massive, stone-clad fist descended from the clouds. Jump! Goku yelled. He grabbed Bulma and phased through the roof of the car a millisecond before the Colossus pulverized the vehicle into a pancake of twisted metal. They landed on a floating shard of road, suspended in the air by the warped physics of the sector. My car. That was the last capsule I had in that series. Bulma screamed, the shock of the situation finally pushing her toward a manic breakdown. Goku, do something about your Foundation, friend, before I start throwing rocks myself. Goku didn't respond. He was staring at the Ox King's chest. There, embedded in a ribcage of reinforced granite, was the 7-star ball. It wasn't glowing with a pure light, it was pulsing with a rhythmic, digital red. It was a heartbeat for a monster. Stay here, Goku commanded. His voice a low, vibrating hum of silver intent. Like I have a choice. I'm on a floating piece of asphalt. Goku ignited. He didn't use the flying nimbus. He didn't want to drag another innocent spirit into this meat grinder. He launched himself like a railgun slug, his silver aura cutting a hole through the atmospheric pressure. The Ox King swung a massive, burning axe, not made of steel, but of hard light logic. The blade didn't just cut, it deleted the coordinates of anything it touched. Goku dodged the swing, the air behind him simply ceasing to exist as the axe passed through it. I can't just hit him, Goku thought, his mind racing through a billion combat simulations per second. His body is the Earth itself. If I destroy him, I destroy the crust of the planet. I have to perform another surgical edit. Goku reached the Titan's chest and planted both hands on the granite surface. Transfer. Void state. He tried to phase through the stone to reach the ball, but the system anticipated him. The granite turned into a high-frequency vibrating wall of anti-phase energy. It threw Goku back, his hands smoking from the contact with raw, unrefined reality code. The system has learned from your fight with Roshi. Keeper, the chronicler appeared, sitting cross-legged on the Ox King's massive shoulder, looking like a flea on a dog. It's no longer using your friends as puppets. It's using them as the hardware. You're not fighting a man, you're fighting the operating system's firewall. Then I'll just have to crash the server. Goku roared, his silver hair lengthening. His small frame finally beginning to expand as he tapped into the adult reservoir of his soul. He didn't care about the masquerade anymore. The world was already breaking. There was no point in pretending he was just a kid with a tail. He grew until he was a teenager, his muscles corded with the power of 1,000 suns. He flew into the clouds, gathering the ambient energy of the chaotic sky. Spirit bomb. Internalized. He didn't make a giant ball of light. He pulled the energy of the free will world, the chaotic, messy, beautiful life force of the bugs, the grass, and Bulma's stubborn spirit, into his own fist. He turned his right hand into a point of infinite density. He didn't hit the Ox King. He hit the ground beneath the Titan. The impact didn't cause an earthquake. It caused a desync. For a radius of 3 miles, the laws of the system stopped applying. The granite became stone again. The hard light axe turned into a rusty hunk of iron. Digital heartbeat of the 7-star ball stuttered. In that window of vulnerability, Goku blurred. He reached into the Ox King's chest and ripped the 7-star ball from its socket. The Titan let out a groan of falling boulders as it collapsed, the hardware reverting back into a very confused, very unconscious Ox King lying in a pile of rubble. Goku landed softly, holding the 7-star ball. Like the 4-star, it was cracked, leaking a thin trail of violet smoke. He felt a sudden, sharp pain in his chest. He looked down. The black ink of the residue was leaking out of his own pores, Santa. Ining his silver aura with veins of corruption. By using the spirit bomb of this world, he had accidentally fed the residue the very life force he was trying to save. It's getting stronger, Goku gasped, falling to one knee. Of course it is, the chronicler said, appearing in front of him. The residue is the old script's vengeful ghost. Every time you interact with the world to save it, you're using the ink of the past. You're trying to build a new house with haunted wood, Goku. Goku looked at the 2 cracked dragon balls in his hands. He realized the trap now. The system wasn't trying to kill him with the Ox King. It was trying to force him to use his power so the residue would grow fat enough to burst out of him. If he gathered all 7 balls, he wouldn't be making a wish. He'd be making a body for the apocalypse. Goku. Bulma's voice came from the distance. She was sliding down a pile of rubble, heading toward the unconscious Ox King. Is he okay? Goku stood up, forcing the black ink back under his skin with a surge of agonizing UI heat. He's alive, Bulma, but we can't stay here. We can't keep doing this, Bulma said, looking at the 2 cracked, smoking balls. Every time we get one of these, something horrible happens. Look at you. You're growing up in minutes, and you look like you're dying. I'm not dying, Goku said, his voice deep and gravelly. I'm just evolving, but the system is ahead of us. It knows where the next one is. He looked toward the horizon, toward the shifting, neon-lit skyline of what should have been Pilaf's castle. But it wasn't a castle. It was a massive, floating, process center, a factory designed to convert the biological life of the planet into script-stable energy. And sitting at the center of that factory, Goku could feel a familiar, terrifying key. It wasn't a friend. It wasn't a drafted human. It was a version of himself. Not the dark reflection from the script room, but something worse. It was the Goku that the system wanted. A perfect, obedient, emotionless warrior who followed the lines of the reboot without question. The protagonist prime, the chronicler whispered. The system's final argument. It's tired of your free will, Goku. It's bringing in the original actor to take back the role. Goku gripped the cracked balls so hard the air around his hands began to sizzle. Let him try, Goku said, his eyes turning a cold, lethal silver. I've been playing this character for a long time. I think I know how to handle an understudy. He turned to Bulma. Stay with the Ox King. Keep him safe. I have to finish this alone. Goku. Wait, but he was already gone. A silver streak of lightning heading toward the heart of the machine. The infinite was closing in, and the page was about to be torn in half. End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13. The protagonist prime. The process center didn't float on engines, it hovered on a cushion of absolute logic. It was a monolith of white ceramic and pulsing gold circuitry, miles wide, casting a shadow over the wasteland that felt like a funeral shroud for the very concept of spontaneity. Inside its sterile halls, the noise of the world, the rustle of wind, the smell of rain, the erratic heartbeat of a scared girl, was filtered out, replaced by the low, agonizing hum of a universe being indexed. Goku didn't land. He punched through the outer hull like a kinetic slug, his silver-gold aura vaporizing the stable matter of the walls. He skidded to a halt in a vast, circular chamber that looked like a cross between a cathedral and a laboratory. In the center of the room, suspended in a pillar of liquid light, was the boy. He looked exactly like Goku had when he first stepped out of his mountain hut. The messy hair, the blue tunic, the wide, innocent eyes. But there was no life in those eyes. They were 2 glass marbles reflecting a billion lines of falling golden code. This was the protagonist prime, the system's backup file, a version of Son Goku that had never hit his head, never learned mercy, and never deviated from the dictated path of the original reboot. Status. Active, the boy spoke. His voice was a perfect, chilling replica of Goku's own. But stripped of the USA grit, stripped of the soul. The anomaly has arrived. Commencing data reclamation. The pillar of light shattered. The boy didn't move. He simply deleted the space between himself and Goku. A small, child-sized fist buried itself in Goku's stomach. The impact didn't just hurt, it was a system shock. Goku felt his own adulthood, his memories of the void, and his very identity as the keeper being pushed out of his body. He was being overridden by the original file. Goku coughed up a spray of silver bile, skidding back across the ceramic floor. "You're just a ghost," Goku growled, his body flickering between the teenager he had become and the child he used to be. "A copy-paste of a life I already lived. I am the canon," the Prime replied, his voice flat. "You were the fan fiction." The Prime lunged again. He didn't use the sophisticated Ultra Instinct. He used a raw, brutal version of the rock-paper-scissors attack. But because he was powered by the system's core, every strike carried the weight of the entire narrative. A rock punch felt like being hit by a galaxy. A paper palm strike attempted to flatten Goku's three-dimensional existence into a 2D drawing. Goku roared, his silver hair flaring as he met the Prime's scissors with his own bare hands. The shockwave of their collision caused the process center to groan, the white walls cracking to reveal the void of the script room bleeding through from the other side. "I am the one who decided this world was worth saving," Goku yelled, driving a knee into the Prime's chest. "I am the one who saw the end and chose to keep going." "Error," the Prime said, his face unmoving even as his chest plate cracked. "Sentimental variables do not influence the script. You have failed the loop. You must be recycled." The Prime raised his hand, and the remaining 5 Dragon Balls manifested around him, not as physical objects but as glowing golden icons. They weren't cracked like Goku's, they were perfect, clinical, and under the system's total control. "Grand reset. Final draft," the Prime intoned. The 5 balls spun, creating a vortex of golden erasure. Goku felt he too cracked balls in his own pocket vibrating, trying to fly toward the Prime to complete the set. The residue, the black ink in Goku's soul, began to thrash in agony, sensing its own deletion. If he gets all 7, the free world is gone, Goku realized. He'll reset the clock to the moment I landed on Earth, and I'll be trapped in a loop forever. Not today. Goku reached into his soul and did the unthinkable. He didn't fight the residue, he opened the door. He let the black ink flood his veins, mixing the old script's malice with the new world's silver fire. His aura turned a terrifying, bruised platinum, a mixture of light and shadow that the system couldn't categorize. He grew again, his muscles tearing through his GI, his hair turning a long, jagged silver black. Kamehameha of the void. The beam he fired wasn't blue, white, or red. It was empty. It was a beam of pure nothingness that ate the golden light of the Prime's vortex. The 2 Gokus stood at opposite ends of the cathedral, locked in a struggle of existence versus non-existence. "You are destroying the hardware," the Prime's voice finally showed a flicker of distortion. "The process center cannot sustain this much unscripted data. Then let it burn," Goku screamed, his teeth turning into silver fangs as the residue tried to take over. The explosion was total. The process center detonated from the inside out, the white ceramic turning into a million shards of glass that fell through the sky like frozen tears. Goku plummeted toward the earth, his body smoking, the silver-black aura fading into a dull gray. He hit the ground in the middle of a desert, the impact forming a crater that went down to the bedrock. He lay there, gasping, his body reverting back to the child form. The 2 cracked Dragon Balls sat beside him, their light almost gone. Across the crater, the protagonist Prime stood up. His blue tunic was shredded, and his skin was covered in golden glitch marks. He looked at Goku, and for the first time, the glass marbles of his eyes showed something else. Confusion. "Why do you keep standing?" the Prime asked, his voice cracking like a broken record. "The math says you are deleted." "Because," Goku whispered, pushing himself up on trembling arms, "I'm not a math problem. I'm a person." The Prime tilted his head, the golden code in his eyes spinning faster and faster. The confusion was a fatal error. The system couldn't handle its own perfect creation experiencing a human doubt. The Prime began to scream, a digital IGH pitched screech that shook the stars. His body began to pixelate, his atoms turning into golden dust. Anomaly. Spreading, the Prime stuttered. The story is bleeding. With a final flash of light, the protagonist Prime vanished, returning to the data stream of the universe. The 5 perfect Dragon Balls fell to the sand, their golden glow fading into a dull, natural orange. Goku crawled toward them, his fingers trailing in the dirt. He gathered all 7 balls into a pile. 2 cracked, 5 whole. The air grew cold. The sky didn't turn golden, it turned black. Not the black of night, but the black of an unwritten page. The chronicler appeared at the edge of the crater. He wasn't sitting cross-legged. He was standing, his robes tattered, his golden numerals bleeding away. "You've done it, Goku," the chronicler said, his voice a hollow echo. "You've killed the system's champion. You've broken the hardware. But look at the world." Goku looked up. The horizon was dissolving. The mountains were turning into gray static. The free will world was collapsing because the machine that ran it had been crashed. "You wanted a world without a script?" the chronicler asked. "This is it. A world without a foundation. Without the system to hold the lines, the ink is just running off the page." Goku looked at the 7 balls. "I can fix it. I have the balls. I'll make the wish." "With what?" the chronicler laughed sadly. "The dragon is a program, Goku. And the program is offline. You're holding 7 rocks in a dying room." But Goku didn't listen. He closed his eyes and placed his hands on the pile of balls. He didn't call for Shenron. He called for the only thing he had left. He called for the writer. "Hey," Goku yelled into the blackness. "I know you're watching. You bird guy. You said you wanted to see a good story. Well, the book is falling apart. Do something." For a long time, there was only silence. Then, a single, scratchy chirp echoed through the void. "I told you, son Goku." The bird's voice whispered from everywhere at once. "I can't fix it, but you still have the pen. You just have to decide what the last sentence is gonna be." Goku looked at his hand. The cosmic pen hadn't vanished. It was buried inside his own heart, glowing through his skin. He reached in and pulled it out. It was no longer silver or gold. It was a deep, vibrant blue, the color of Bulma's hair. The color of the Earth's oceans, the color of a hope that refused to be scripted. "I know what to do," Goku said. He didn't draw a world. He didn't draw a hero. He drew a bridge. He touched the pen to the 7 balls, and a beam of sapphire light shot into the sky, piercing the blackness and connecting the free will world to the higher heavens. "I'm not making a wish," Goku shouted. "I'm making a deal." The blackness shattered. Goku found himself standing back in the script room. But the bird guy wasn't alone. The 3 architects were there. Zeno was there. And why we're all looking at the bridge of blue light. He's giving us the free will data, the circle architect whispered, sounding stunned. He's offering to merge his anomaly with our stability. "A new deal," Goku said, his voice steady. "You guys get your show. You get to watch a world that's unpredictable and exciting. But in exchange, you stay out of the driver's seat. No more reboots. No more erasures. You let the story write itself, and you just buy a ticket like everyone else." Zeno looked at the blue light. He looked at the noise of the world vibrating through the bridge. He smiled. "I like the blue one better than the gold one," Zeno said. "It's prettier." The architects looked at each other. They looked at the broken hardware of the process center. They realized that Goku had made them a better offer. A universe that didn't need maintenance, only observation. "The deal is struck," the star architect intoned. Goku felt the weight of the keeper position leaving him. The golden numerals on his skin vanished. The silver fire in his soul settled into a warm, gentle ember. He was no longer a god. He was no longer a program. He was just Son Goku. "Go home, kid," the bird guy said, picking up his pen. "I've got a lot of editing to do to make this bridge work." Goku blinked. He was back on Mount Paozu. The sun was rising. The air smelled like pine and peace. He heard a car horn. A yellow capsule car skidded to a stop nearby. Bulma stepped out, her face clean, her pink dress unmarred. She looked at him and smiled. A real, unscripted, beautiful smile. "Hey, Goku, I found it. The 2-star ball was in a bird's nest. Can you believe it? Goku looked at her. He looked at his hands. He was a boy again. The infinite was over. The reboot was dead. Yeah, Goku said, his voice light and full of life. I can believe it. But as he walked toward the car, he saw a small, blue-haired boy sitting in the back seat. A boy with a tail. A boy who looked exactly like him. Goku froze. Bulma. Who's that? Oh, that's your brother, silly. Bulma laughed. Gohan. Get out and say hi to Goku. Goku felt a chill. The writer had made one last edit. To make the free will world work, he had added a new character. A variable that had never existed in any timeline. The story wasn't over. It had just gained a co-author. End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. The Co-Author Paradox. The sunrise over Mount Paozu didn't look like a digital render anymore. It was messy, the light scattering through the humid haze in a way that felt gloriously unoptimized. But Goku stood frozen, his hand halfway to the door of Bulma's car. His heart, which had survived the pressure of the void and the erasure of the architects, was now hammering against his ribs for a much simpler reason. There, hopping out of the back seat with a grin that mirrored his own, was the second Saiyan child. He wore a miniature version of the Turtle School GI, though they hadn't even met Roshi yet, and his tail flicked with a playful, rhythmic energy. Hey, you took forever, the boy shouted, his voice a perfect, higher-pitched echo of Goku's. Grandpa said you were out, finding yourself, or whatever, but I think you were just napping. Goku looked at Bulma, his eyes wide. Brother. Bulma, I don't have a brother. I had a grandpa, and a pod, and... Goku, did you hit your head on a rock again? Bulma sighed, popping the trunk to reveal a cooler of soda. You and Gohan have been driving me crazy since we left the mountain. Honestly, having two of you is twice the headache, but I guess it's twice the muscle. Goku looked back at the boy, Gohan. This wasn't the Gohan who would eventually become a scholar, nor was it the Grandpa Gohan who had raised him. This was a new ink stroke on the canvas. The writer, that bird-masked cartoonist, had given the world a safety valve. A second protagonist to share the weight of a world that no longer had a script. The co-author, Goku realized. He's not just a brother. He's the system's way of making sure I don't become a god again. He's my tether. What's the matter, Goku? Gohan asked, tilting his head. For a split second, his eyes flashed with a deep, knowing violet, the color of the residue. But purified, you look like you're trying to remember a dream you already woke up from. Nothing, Goku said, his voice finally finding its footing. He reached out and ruffled the boy's hair. The hair felt real. The key felt warm. Just glad you're here, Gohan. They piled into the car, but the free will world was already testing its boundaries. As they drive over toward the location of the next Dragon Ball, the geography didn't just sit there. It shifted with a subtle, rhythmic grace. Trees grew taller as they passed. The river flowed faster. The world was writing itself in real time based on their presence. So, Gohan said, leaning over the seat. Where are we going first? I want to fight something big. Grandpa says there's a guy in the desert who uses a sword. Yamcha, Goku whispered. Who? Bulma asked. Just a hunch, Goku said, leaning back. But as they crossed the border into the Diablo Desert, the air didn't just get hot. It turned into a physical weight. The deal Goku had made with the architects meant they wouldn't reboot the world, but it didn't mean the world was safe. Without a script, the chaos was beginning to pool in the low places of reality. The sand began to swirl, not in a storm, but in a geometric pattern. A massive, black pyramid began to rise from the dunes, a structure that had never existed in any version of Dragon Ball history. That's not on the map, Bulma said, her voice trembling as she hit the brakes. And the radar, it's saying all the remaining balls are inside that thing. They're not just inside, Goku said, his silver-gold intuition humming. They're being used as a lock. Goku stepped out of the car. Gohan followed him, his tail standing straight up in alarm. Goku, that building smells like before. I know, Goku said. From the apex of the pyramid, a figure descended. It wasn't a bandit. It wasn't a god. It was a man wrapped in bandages, his eyes glowing with a cold, blue fire. He carried a staff made of the same white ceramic as the process center. The keeper has returned to the tomb, the figure spoke. His voice was a rasp of dry sand. But you brought a guest. A variable we did not account for. Who are you? Goku demanded, his hand moving toward his power pole. I am the librarian, the man said. The one who archives the deleted timelines. You thought you could just merge the worlds and walk away. The old scripts don't just vanish, Son Goku. They rot, and the rot has found a door. The librarian pointed his staff at Gohan. The boy is the key. He is the bridge between what was and what could be. If we delete the company author, the story returns to our control. In a flash, the librarian wasn't in the air, he was in front of Gohan. The staff moved like a blur of light, aimed straight for the boy's heart. Goku didn't think. He didn't use Ultra Instinct. He used Brotherhood. He threw himself in front of the blow, the ceramic staff shattering against his ribs. The impact sent a shockwave through the desert that leveled the dunes for miles. Goku coughed up blood, but he didn't move. Run, Gohan. No, Gohan roared. The boy didn't cower. He flared an aura that wasn't silver, gold, or black. It was a shimmering, iridescent rainbow, the sum total of every potential the universe had ever held. He tackled the librarian, his small fists moving with a ferocity that even Goku hadn't possessed at that age. You don't touch my brother, Gohan screamed. The boy's power spiked, hitting levels that should have been impossible. He wasn't just a fighter. He was a reality warpers. Every punch he landed changed the librarian's form, turning him from a man to a bird, to a cloud of numbers, to a pile of salt. Goku watched in awe. He's not just a Saiyan. He's the embodiment of the free will I fought for. He's the physical manifestation of the unwritten. But the librarian laughed, his form settling back into the bandaged man. The more he uses that power, the more the pyramid draws from him. Look at the stars, Keeper. Goku looked up. Even in the middle of the day, the stars were visible, and they were spinning. The librarian was using Gohan's energy to power a hard reset of the sector. Gohan, stop. He's baiting you. Goku stood up, his ribs knitting back together with a hiss of silver heat. He realized now that he couldn't protect the world by himself. And he couldn't let Gohan do it either. They had to co-write the solution. Goku reached out and grabbed Gohan's shoulder. Together, Gohan, like we're drawing the same line. Gohan looked at him, his iridescent eyes softening. Together, on 3, Goku said. They both charged their ki. Goku's silver and Gohan's rainbow merged, creating a beam of pure, narrative force. They didn't aim for the librarian. They aimed for the pyramid. The tomb of the old worlds. Kamehameha. Genesis. The beam hit the black stone. The pyramid didn't explode, it dissolved into a million butterflies. The old scripts, trapped inside, weren't destroyed, they were released. The ghosts of the Red Ribbon world and the Frieza world flew into the sky, turning into stars that actually belonged there. The librarian shrieked as his bandages unraveled, revealing nothing but a pile of empty parchment. The desert returned to silence. The sun beat down, hot and honest. Goku and Gohan stood side by side, both of them breathing hard, their hands still glowing with the fading light of their combined attack. We did it, Gohan said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Was that a twist? The best kind, Goku smiled. He looked at the sand. The remaining Dragon Balls were lying there, no longer cracked, no longer digital. They were just orange glass, reflecting the faces of 2B. Rothers who were about to change everything. But as Bulma ran toward them, shouting about her ruined tires and the idiot brothers she was stuck with, Goku felt a final, subtle vibration in the earth. He looked toward the horizon. The deal was holding, but the free will world had one more surprise. Across the ocean, on a distant, nameless continent, a pod had just landed. Not a Saiyan pod, it was a sleek, silver craft with the emblem of the Galactic Patrol. And inside, a small, purple alien was looking at a monitor that showed 2 identical power readings. 2 anomalies, Yako whispered into his comms. The Keeper and the Company Author. Requesting backup. Send. The Executioner. Goku looked at Gohan. The story wasn't just unwritten, it was becoming a war for the very right to exist. Hey, Gohan, Goku said, his voice full of a new, legendary grit. You ready for the next chapter? Gohan grinned, his tail flicking with excitement. I was born for it, big brother. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15. The Last Full Stop. The Galactic Executioner did not arrive with a bang, but with a total suspension of sound. As the Silver Patrol craft touched down, the desert sand turned to glass beneath it. Out stepped a figure cloaked in shifting static, a hunter from the deep archive, designed to prune timelines that grew too complex. Son Goku. Son Gohan, the Executioner intoned, its face a smooth mirror reflecting 1,000 dead versions of them. The coexistence of two primes is a critical overflow error. To save the multiverse, one of you must be redacted. Goku stepped forward, his silver hair catching the sun. But Gohan grabbed his hand. The boy's iridescent aura pulsed, harmonizing with Goku's silver-gold heat. They weren't two separate files anymore, they were a single, unbreakable sentence. You're still thinking like a machine, Goku said, his voice echoing with the finality of a man who had reached the end of the book. We aren't errors, we're the new style, the final synthesis. Goku and Gohan didn't charge. They simply walked toward the Executioner. With every step, the free will world solidified around them. The glass sand turned back into vibrant earth, the static sky deepened into a true, infinite blue. They reached out together, four hands grasping the Executioner's weapon of erasure. In the old story, we fought to survive, Goku whispered. In this story, Gohan added, we live to create. They didn't use a blast. They used the final edit. A surge of pure, unadulterated life force flowed from the brothers into the Executioner. The machine god didn't explode, it evolved. Its static cloak dissolved into a simple, white traveler's robe. Its mirror face gained features, a look of genuine, startled wonder. The Executioner dropped its weapon. System bypassed. The story is beautiful. The eternal horizon. The architects withdrew. The higher heavens went dark, satisfied with the spectacle of a world that had finally outgrown its creators. Eve. And the bird-masked writer put down his pen, watching from the rafters of reality as the ink dried into a permanent, perfect messy masterpiece. Goku stood on the clifftop of Mount Paozu, years later. He looked like the man he was always meant to be, strong, serene, and mortal. Beside him stood Gohan, a man of his own making, and Bulma, who had turned the world into a paradise of science and spirit. Is it over, Goku? Bulma asked, leaning against the railing of their home. Goku looked at his palm. The golden numerals were gone. The silver fire was a quiet hum in his heart. He looked at the horizon, where the sun was setting on a world that no longer needed a keeper. No, Goku smiled, pulling a blank notebook from his pocket, a gift from the writer. The reboots are done. The again is over. He handed the book to a young, bright-eyed child running toward them, a boy named Oob, the first child born of the unscripted world. Now, Goku said, the real story finally begins. The end.